They say home is where the heart is. In my case, it's where sweet revenge lives. I'm Emily Anderson, and this is the story of how I went from being the struggling daughter to the owner of the luxury retirement community my parents desperately wanted to live in. Growing up in a middle-class family, I learned early that money was always a source of stress. My parents, Robert and Linda Anderson, worked hard, Dad as an accountant, Mom as a high school teacher, but they always seemed to be chasing the next paycheck. Their dream was to retire in luxury, specifically at Sunset Gardens, the most prestigious retirement community in our state. One day, Dad would say, looking at Sunset Gardens brochures, "We'll live there, if we save enough." I inherited their dream of financial security, but with a different approach. While they focused on saving from their salaries, I became fascinated with real estate and property development. By 14, I was reading everything I could about real estate investment. My parents found it amusing. "Such big dreams for a little girl," Mom would say, patting my head, "but real estate is for rich people, dear." That attitude continued through my college years. When I declared my major in real estate development instead of following Dad's footsteps into accounting, they were concerned. "It's too risky," Dad argued. "You need a stable career." "Property development is stable," I tried explaining. "Every building you see started as someone's investment." "Leave that to the big developers," Mom advised. "Focus on something practical." But I had a plan. While studying, I worked 3 jobs: barista in the morning, library assistant during the day, and property management intern in the evenings. Every dollar I earned went into my Empire Fund. My first investment came during my junior year. A small, rundown duplex near campus was going into foreclosure. The location was perfect for student housing, but the property needed work. "You're making a huge mistake," Dad warned when I asked for his advice, not his money, about taking out a small loan. "Property management is for professionals." I bought it anyway, using my savings and a carefully structured loan. Spent every weekend renovating it myself, learning from YouTube videos and retired contractors who were happy to teach an eager student. 6 months later, I had my first rental property fully occupied with graduate students, generating positive cash flow, but my parents still didn't see it as a real career. "It's nice for extra money," Mom said dismissively, "but you need a proper job." After graduation, I took a position with a commercial real estate firm, not for the salary, which was modest, but for the education. I wanted to learn how the big developers operated. Meanwhile, I kept buying properties, small at first, more student housing, a couple of single-family homes, a small apartment building. Each one was carefully chosen, renovated, and managed for maximum return. My parents remained skeptical. "Real estate is too volatile," Dad would lecture. "One market crash and you'll lose everything." What they didn't know was that I was learning from the best in the business. My boss, Sarah Mitchell, became my mentor. She saw something in me that reminded her of herself 30 years ago. "You understand the long game," she told me. "Most people want quick profits. You see the bigger picture." Under her guidance, I started thinking bigger. When a prime piece of land came up for sale on the outskirts of town, Sarah helped me put together my first development deal. "It's perfect for senior living," I explained to my investors. "The demographics in this area show an aging population with substantial retirement savings. They want luxury, but they want to stay close to family." The investors agreed. Construction began on what would become Willow Creek Estates, though I kept my involvement quiet, working through holding companies and letting others be the public face. My parents, meanwhile, were approaching retirement age. Their savings weren't quite enough for Sunset Gardens, which disappointed them deeply. "We've worked so hard," Mom sighed during one family dinner, "but these luxury communities are for rich people." I saw my opportunity. "I might be able to help," I offered. "I know something about real estate." Dad actually laughed. "You can't help us," he said, shaking his head. "These places cost millions. Your little rental properties are cute, honey, but this is different. I have connections." I tried again. "Maybe I could." "Emily," Mom interrupted, "we appreciate the thought, but be realistic. You can barely afford your own apartment." They still thought I lived in a small rental, not knowing I owned the entire building. "Let's look at something more in our range," Dad suggested, pulling out brochures for less prestigious communities. I let the subject drop, but I was smiling inside. Willow Creek Estates was nearing completion, and it was even more luxurious than Sunset Gardens. The waiting list was already long, but as the owner, I had certain privileges. 3 months later, my parents received an invitation to tour Willow Creek Estates. They almost threw it away. "We can't afford this place," Mom said, but curiosity made them attend the open house. I watched through security cameras as they toured the facility, their eyes wide at the amenities, the Olympic-sized pool, the gourmet dining room, the spa and fitness center. Everything was top of the line. "This is even nicer than Sunset Gardens," Mom whispered to Dad. The sales director, who knew exactly who they were, gave them the VIP treatment. "We have a special offer for certain pre-selected clients," she told them, "a significant discount on our luxury suites." My parents were tempted but suspicious. "Why us?" Dad asked. "The owner personally selected you," the director replied smoothly. They applied, certain they'd be rejected. When they were approved at a rate they could actually afford, they were ecstatic but confused. The day of the lease signing, I made sure to be there. My parents arrived early, dressed in their best clothes, ready to sign for their dream retirement home. The facility manager greeted them warmly. "Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, welcome to Willow Creek Estates." She gestured to me, standing quietly in the corner. "Miss Anderson, your parents are here to see your property." Mom dropped her pen. Dad's mouth fell open. "Your property?" Mom stammered. I smiled. "Welcome to my latest development, one of 12 luxury retirement communities I own across 3 states. "This is impossible," Dad whispered. You rent apartments to students." "I started with student rentals," I corrected, "then I moved into larger developments. Willow Creek Estates is my newest project, $50 million in construction costs, fully subscribed before opening, and yes, entirely mine." They stared at me, then at the elegant building around them, then back at me. But how?" Mom managed. "Remember when you told me real estate was for rich people?" I asked quietly. "You were right. I just decided to become one of those rich people. All those times we dismissed your work." Dad's voice trailed off. "Were opportunities for me to prove you wrong," I finished. "Every property I bought, every development I planned, was leading to this moment." The facility manager, enjoying the scene, added, "Ms. Anderson is one of the most successful developers in the region. Willow Creek Estates is already being called the new standard in luxury senior living." My parents sat heavily in the plush lobby chairs, trying to process that their struggling daughter owned not just this facility, but an entire real estate empire. "The discounted rate we were offered," Mom began, "is real," I assured them. "Consider it a family discount, though given that I own the place, I could have just given you a unit for free." "Why didn't you?" Dad asked. "Because you raised me to earn what I have," I replied. "You may not have believed in my methods, but you taught me the value of hard work. I want you to feel you earned your place here." Tears formed in Mom's eyes. "We were so wrong about you." "You weren't wrong about everything," I said softly. "You taught me to dream big. Remember all those Sunset Gardens brochures? You just didn't dream big enough." The lease signing proceeded, though my parents' hands were shaking so much they could barely hold the pens. As they reviewed the paperwork, they began to notice details they'd missed. "Anderson Development Corporation, that's you?" Dad asked, pointing to the ownership documents. "All 12 properties," I confirmed, "plus 30 mixed-use developments, 40 residential complexes, and that little student housing empire you found so cute." "Our daughter," Mom whispered, "our daughter is a millionaire?" "Billionaire, actually," the facility manager corrected cheerfully, "though she never mentions it." After the signing, I gave them a private tour, showing them features even other residents wouldn't have access to. Their luxury suite had been specially designed with their preferences in mind: Dad's love of golf, private putting green on their balcony; Mom's passion for painting, a custom-designed art studio with perfect natural light. "I've been planning this for years," I explained. "Every time you mentioned what you'd want in a retirement home, I took notes." The garden layout, Mom realized, it's exactly what I always described as my dream garden. "Down to the specific varieties of roses," I nodded. "And Dad, the golf simulator is programmed with all your favorite courses." They were quiet for a long time, taking it all in. Finally, Dad spoke. "We should have believed in you. You believed in hard work and financial security," I replied. "I just found a different path to those goals." The next few weeks were amusing as they adjusted to their new reality. They kept discovering new things about my success, like the fact that I owned their favorite shopping center, or that the charity foundation funding their old school's music program was mine. Mom struggled most with the shift in our dynamics. "I don't know how to act," she admitted one day. "My daughter is my landlord, and a billionaire." "Act like my mom," I suggested, "the one who taught me to work hard and never give up. The success is just details." Dad started asking about my business, genuinely interested now in understanding real estate development. I caught him reading books about property investment, trying to understand the empire his daughter had built. I was wrong about the risk, he said during one of our discussions. You weren't taking chances, you were making calculated investments. I was too focused on the traditional path to see it. The other residents soon discovered who I was. Despite my attempts to remain low-key, my parents became minor celebrities in the community. Your daughter built all this? They'd be asked. You must be so proud. We are now, they'd reply, with a mix of pride and lingering embarrassment at how long it took them to see my potential. Last month, I overheard Mom giving advice to another resident's daughter who was interested in real estate. Don't let anyone tell you it's too risky or not for you, she said. My Emily proved that with enough determination and smarts, you can build an empire. Dad's been using his accounting skills to help some of the other residents understand their investments better. My daughter taught me that real wealth comes from seeing opportunities others miss, he tells them. Yesterday, they hosted their first dinner party in their luxury suite. I watched from my office as they proudly showed their friends around, pointing out features they now knew I had specifically designed for them. Our daughter thought of everything, Mom said, beaming. She always saw more than we could see. The irony of them now living in a property I owned wasn't lost on anyone, but seeing them truly happy, truly proud, not just of the luxury around them but of the daughter they had finally recognized, made all those years of underestimation worth it. This morning, I received a letter from them. Dear Emily, we thought we were teaching you about success, but you taught us that success doesn't always look like what we expect. Every detail of this place shows how well you know us, even when we didn't really know you. We're sorry we didn't see your vision sooner, but we're so proud to see it now. Love. Mom and Dad. P.S. Dad finally read your feature in Forbes. He framed it and hung it in our living room, right next to your first property tax bill, which he found in his old files, from Little Acorns. I had the letter framed and hung it in my office, next to the first Sunset Gardens brochure I'd saved as inspiration. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving people wrong, it's about proving yourself right in the most spectacular way possible. And sometimes, home really is where the heart is, especially when you own the entire building.
What's this supposed to be? My mom asked, not even reaching to take the flowers. They're specially imported orchids, I suggested quietly. There's something special inside too. But she didn't look. Instead, her face turned red with anger, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the armchair. Oh, I knew it. You really are a useless girl. She spat that out as she laughed. You show up here in that plain outfit, probably the only nice thing you own. You drive some basic rental car because you can't afford anything better, and now you give me flowers? What am I supposed to do with these? They'll die in 3 days. She threw the bouquet back at me. It landed on the coffee table, scattering petals across the surface. My step-siblings Nate and Cassie snickered behind their hands. Some guests looked uncomfortable, others seemed to be enjoying the drama. My stepfather Victor just kept scrolling through his phone as if nothing was happening. I picked up the bouquet calmly, gathering the scattered petals with careful fingers. The room had gone quiet, waiting to see what I would do next. My heart was pounding, but I refused to let them see me rattled. You know what's funny, Mom? I said, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. Hidden in these flowers is. She knew nothing about them. Their attitude was the same as in the past. They didn't think of me as their own family member. My heart drifted back to 10 years ago, to that day when my life was changed forever. It was on my high school graduation day when I was pulled away. I'd barely removed my cap and gown when Mom and Victor, my father-in-law, called me into the living room for a serious discussion. They sat on the couch like judges about to pass a sentence while I stood before them, my heart racing with anticipation. Alexandra. Victor began, his voice stern and cold. You're 22 now. We've been generous, but you need to understand that you can't live here forever. You need to find a real job and start earning your own living. I smiled calmly. feeling a surge of relief wash over me rather than the panic they clearly expected. "I understand completely. I'll move out by next week," I replied, savoring the flash of surprise that crossed their faces. I guess they were both expecting defiance and tears from me. Mom opened her mouth like she was going to say something, then closed it again. Her perfectly lipsticked lips drew a solitary line. "Well, good," Victor finally managed. "That's very mature of you." Neither of them asked where I planned to go or how I would support myself. They were too relieved that I'd agreed so easily to risk asking questions that might complicate things. I could almost feel their eagerness to turn my bedroom into another space for their precious Cassie. Moving day arrived faster than I expected. I packed my life into 4 cardboard boxes and 2 suitcases, my fingers trembling slightly as I wrapped each item. It was surprising how little I'd accumulated over the years, almost like I'd been subconsciously preparing for this moment all along, waiting for my chance to escape. Grandma Ellie pulled up in her blue Honda at exactly 9 in the morning. I watched through my bedroom window as she parked, my stomach knotting as I half expected Mom or someone else to come see what was happening. But the house remained silent, even though I could see some movement behind the curtains of Cassie's room. As we drove away, I watched my childhood home shrink in the side mirror until it disappeared completely. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt lighter with each mile we put between us and that house of carefully crafted pretenses, like chains falling away from my shoulders. I spent that summer working at Sunshine Cafe, serving coffee and sandwiches to regulars who always tipped well and treated me like family. The warmth in their smiles was something I'd forgotten could exist. The owner, Mrs. Peterson, even let me pick up extra shifts when I wanted to save more for college expenses. Since then, my relationship with my parents faded away completely. September came, and I boarded a plane to start my new life at Westlake University, 3 states away from everything I'd known. "This is it, my fresh start," I whispered to myself as the plane took off. The real estate and business program was challenging, but I threw myself into it completely, determination burning in my chest with every late-night study session. My roommate Liv became my first real friend since high school. She didn't know my whole story at first, but when she finally learned about it, she just hugged me tightly and said, "Their loss, girl. Their absolute loss." Mom's Instagram became my window into the life I'd left behind. There they were, the perfect family, smiling at Nate's business networking events, celebrating Cassie's gallery openings, taking vacation selfies at expensive resorts. My stomach would clench seeing their practiced poses. The captions always read like marketing copy, "So proud of our amazing entrepreneurs," or "Nothing better than quality family time." I was never mentioned. Not even once. It was like I'd never existed, erased from the family narrative. I spent holidays at Grandma's house, cooking together and watching classic films from her collection. The smell of her homemade apple pie would fill the house with warmth that no luxury restaurant could match. We created our own traditions, and they meant more to me than any forced family dinner ever had. Sometimes she'd catch me scrolling through Mom's social media posts and gently take my phone away, her eyes filled with understanding. "Don't torture yourself," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "You're making your own story now, one that's real." And I was. I graduated summa cum laude with job offers already lined up, thanks to my internships and academic performance. Liv's mentor, Diana Westbrook, ran a prestigious real estate firm, and she noticed my potential during a university property investment showcase. "We need ambitious minds like yours," she said during my interview, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Your professors speak very highly of your market analyses." I started as a junior agent, but I wasn't content to stay there. I worked weekends, built my client network meticulously, and studied market trends obsessively. Within 5 years, I'd become a top-selling agent and had enough savings for a down payment on my own luxury condo. The day I signed the mortgage papers, I stood in my empty living room, keys in hand, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and finally let myself cry. They were happy tears, tears of pride, of accomplishment, of knowing that I'd made it on my own terms. Then came the biggest surprise. Diana called me into her office one morning, about 6 years after I'd started at the company. "I've been watching your progress," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "You've consistently outperformed everyone. I want to make you a partner in our luxury properties division." My hands trembled as I opened the folder and nearly gasped at the commission structure. It was more money than I'd ever imagined making, especially at 28. I never saw the point in broadcasting my life online. Sure, I had social media accounts, but I mostly used them to share occasional photos of properties or sunset views from my condo. Grandma was the only one who knew about my sales records, my new condo, or the sleek black Audi R8 I'd bought myself as a reward. "You've earned every bit of it," she'd say proudly, her eyes glistening whenever I shared my achievements with her. Meanwhile, Nate and Cassie's social media feeds were like endless highlight reels of mediocrity. "I can't believe they still do this," I muttered to myself, scrolling through their profiles. Nate would pose next to his used BMW 3 Series with captions like CEO lifestyle. Blessed luxury life. While Cassie shared photos of herself at designer stores, tagging luxury brands she clearly couldn't afford without Mom and Victor's credit cards. One post particularly made me laugh. Nate standing next to his car at some local networking event, writing, "When hard work pays off. Success entrepreneur real estate." I was reading this while sitting in my Audi R8, its engine purring like a contented cat, worth more than his annual salary at Victor's company. The leather seats still smelled new, and the dashboard gleamed in the sunlight. But I didn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. My success spoke for itself in ways Instagram filters couldn't capture. Then came the message that changed everything. It popped up on my Instagram DMs one Tuesday morning, the notification sound making my heart skip a beat. "Alexandra, it's your mother. Mother's Day is coming up next month, and I'm having a small family gathering at home. I expect you to attend and bring something appropriate. It's on Sunday, 1 p.m. sharp. Don't embarrass me by showing up empty-handed." I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold as I read the message multiple times. 3 years of minimal contact, and this was how she reached out. No "how are you," no attempt to bridge the gap, just a command to appear at her gathering, with that subtle expectation of an expensive gift. I almost deleted the message right there, but something stopped me, my finger hovering over the screen. Curiosity, maybe, or the desire to see what would happen when our worlds collide. I called Diana and requested a few days off, then booked a flight to my hometown, my stomach a mix of butterflies and dread. That evening, over tea in her cozy kitchen filled with the scent of freshly baked cookies, Grandma asked the question I'd been pondering myself. "What are you planning to give her, sweetheart?" I smiled, pulling out my phone to show her the photos. A lakeside vacation property I'd recently acquired through a foreclosure deal. 3 bedrooms, private dock, panoramic views, worth about $450,000. Grandma's eyes widened, her teacup freezing halfway to her lips. "Alex, that's too much. She doesn't deserve it after how she treated you." "Oh, I know she doesn't," I laughed, taking a sip of tea, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. But can you imagine her face when she realizes what she's been missing all these years? The daughter she pushed aside turned out to be more successful than she could have imagined. I want to see her expression when she realizes just how wrong she was about me. "You're a little bit devious," Grandma chuckled, shaking her head, her eyes twinkling. "I must say, I'm rather looking forward to it myself. You can do this, I whispered to myself as I pulled up to my mother's suburban house. The morning of Mom's gathering, I slipped on my Armani pantsuit, elegant in its simplicity, with a tailoring that spoke wealth without screaming it. The price tag could have bought 10 of the flashy outfits I spotted later that day. I deliberately drove my rental sedan instead of requesting an Audi from the agency, amused by how this would play into their assumptions about my life. I carried an exquisite bouquet of rare orchids and peonies, arranged by a florist who served celebrities, the delicate blooms nestled in tissue paper. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips as I walked up the familiar driveway. The house turned out to be exactly what I expected, superficially upgraded with the kind of features that impressed people who'd never seen truly high-end homes. The kind of place that had granite countertops but cheap cabinets beneath them. I'd shown properties that made this look like student housing. Mom greeted me at the door, her eyes barely flickering over me before her lip curled slightly. "Oh, Alexandra, you came. You could have dressed up a bit more for the occasion." She glanced at my understated designer outfit with disapproval. The living room was already full when I entered. Mom sat in her favorite armchair, wearing a sequined blouse that sparkled under the recessed lighting. Victor was beside her, and Nate and Cassie flanked them like royal heirs. The rest of the seats were filled with relatives I hadn't seen in years. Aunt Linda, who used to pinch my cheeks too hard, Cousin Rachel, who always bragged about her kids, and various other vague faces from my past. I took my seat at the far end of the room, watching the show unfold. Aunt Linda gave Mom a scented candle set. "It's from that exclusive boutique at the mall," she explained proudly, her voice carrying across the room. Mom cooed over it like it was diamonds. "Oh, Linda, you know exactly what I love." Rachel presented a gift card to a local spa for a day of pampering. More excited squeals from Mom. The gifts continued: a cookbook, a decorative vase, a basket of bath products. Mom treated each one like a precious treasure, making sure to emphasize how thoughtful and perfect each gift was, her eyes lighting up with each package. Then came Nate and Cassie's moment. They stood up together, grinning like they'd just won the lottery. "Mom," Nate said, and it still felt wrong hearing him call her that, "Cassie and I pooled our money to get you something special." Cassie pulled out her phone and showed a photo. "It's a 65-inch smart TV. We already had it delivered and mounted in your living room." Mom burst into tears, pulling them both into a tight hug, her jewelry clinking as she embraced them. "My wonderful, generous children. I can't believe you did this. You must have saved for months." Finally, all eyes turned to me. I reached forward and presented my bouquet. Mom's expression darkened immediately. "What's this supposed to be?" she asked, not even reaching to take the flowers. "They're specially imported orchids," I suggested quietly. "There's something special inside too." But she didn't look. Instead, her face turned red with anger, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the armchair. "Oh, I knew it. You really are a useless girl." She spat that out with a laugh. "You show up here in that plain outfit, probably the only nice thing you own. You drive some basic rental car because you can't afford anything better. And now you give me flowers? What am I supposed to do with these?" "They'll die in 3 days." She threw the bouquet back at me. It landed on the coffee table, scattering petals across the surface. Nate and Cassie snickered behind their hands. Some guests looked uncomfortable, others seemed to be enjoying the drama. Victor just kept scrolling through his phone as if nothing was happening. I picked up the bouquet calmly, gathering the scattered petals with careful fingers. The room had gone quiet, waiting to see what I would do next. My heart was pounding, but I refused to let them see me rattled. "You know what's funny, Mom?" I said. my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. Hidden in these flowers is the deed to a lakefront vacation property. 3 bedrooms, private dock, panoramic views, worth about $450,000. Her face was drained of color. Cassie dropped her champagne flute with a shatter that seemed deafening in the sudden silence. That's impossible," Mom stammered, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide her shock. "You can't afford something like that?" "You're obviously lying." I couldn't help but laugh, the sound cutting through the tension. "You'd know whether I could afford it or not if you'd shown any interest in my life these past few years. But let me catch you up right now. I'm a partner at Westbrook Luxury Properties. I own my condo in the city outright. And that rental car you mocked? I drove it because I didn't want to leave my Audi R8 parked in this neighborhood overnight." Nate's mouth hung open, his carefully cultivated image of success crumbling before my eyes. Cassie had stopped giggling, her fingers nervously twisting her fake designer bracelet. "But since you're so convinced I'm a failure," I continued, tucking the small envelope back into the bouquet, "and you clearly don't want anything from me, I won't spoil your Mother's Day any further. Enjoy your TV. I hear the resolution is almost as good as the one in my home theater system." I walked out with my head high, the soft thud of the front door closing behind me feeling like the period at the end of a long, painful sentence. I drove straight to Grandma's house, the weight on my shoulders lifting with each mile. She was waiting for me, 2 cups of tea already steaming on the coffee table, the familiar scent of chamomile filling the air. I told her everything that had happened, my voice occasionally breaking. "Some people never change," she sighed, shaking her head, the lamplight catching the silver in her hair. "Your mother's always been more interested in appearances than reality. Even as a little girl, she cared more about how things looked than how they felt." We were still talking when my phone started ringing, an unknown number, but the flutter in my stomach told me who it was. "Alexandra, sweetheart," Mom's voice dripped with honey, the contrast to her earlier tone making me wince. "I don't know where she got my number. I've been thinking about what happened today." "Have you?" I replied coolly, my fingers tightening around the phone. "Yes, and I realize now that I may have been hasty. If you're still willing to give me that property deed, I'd love to accept it. We could use this as a fresh start. I want to be part of your life again. We're family." "No," I said, finally understanding something that had eluded me for years. "We're not family. We're just people who share DNA. And you didn't want to restore our relationship, you just want that lake house." I hung up, my hand trembling slightly, but my resolve firm. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing after I left town. Mom called from different numbers, her cell, the house phone, even Victor's phone. When she realized I wouldn't pick up, the messages started flooding in, each notification making my stomach clench. "Alex, please call me back. We need to talk about this property situation. I've been thinking about what you said about your career. Maybe you could help Nate get started in real estate? He's very good with people. Cassie's been saying she'd love to intern at a luxury property firm like yours. It would look so good on her resume. The house needs some renovations, and since you're doing so well." Each message was more transparent than the last. No apologies, no acknowledgement of the past, just an endless stream of requests and hints about my money. The desperation in her words made my skin crawl. It was like watching a hungry predator circling its prey, except what Mom had lost wasn't a meal, it was her relationship with her daughter. I read each message with a strange detachment, like I was analyzing a client's property portfolio. The tactics were almost impressive in their variety. Guilt. "I'm your mother. How can you ignore me after all I've done?" Flattery. "You've become such a successful businesswoman." Manipulation. Family should help family in times of need. And even threats. I'll tell everyone in the industry how you abandoned your poor mother. Your mother's been calling me non-stop. Grandma told me over the phone a week after I'd returned home. She showed up at my garden gate today, if you can believe it. Demanded I give her your address and information about the lake house. What did you tell her? I asked, though the warmth in my chest already told me the answer. I told her to get off my property before I called the police, she chuckled, her voice strong despite her age. You should have seen her face turn red as my tomatoes. She kept saying she had a right to know where her daughter lives and what properties you own. I reminded her that she gave up that right years ago when she chose Victor's children over you. I could picture Mom standing at Grandma's garden gate, probably wearing one of her knockoff designer outfits, trying to bully her way into getting what she wanted. It was the same pattern I'd watched my whole life, but now I could see it clearly for what it was, pure selfishness disguised as family concern. She didn't take it well, Grandma continued, started ranting about how ungrateful we both were, how she'd sacrificed everything for you. Mrs. Henderson next door was watering her roses and heard everything. When she finally realized I wasn't going to give in, she stormed off to her car, nearly backing into Mr. Peterson's mailbox. But Alex, be careful. The look in her eyes, she seemed desperate. I already blocked her on everything, I assured Grandma. Social media, phone, email, everything. And security at my office has her photo at the front desk in case she shows up. After we hung up, I walked through my condo, running my fingers along the cool marble countertops, looking at everything I'd built for myself. The custom furniture I'd carefully selected, the original art on the walls, the panoramic view of the city skyline from my floor-to-ceiling windows. All of it earned through my own hard work and determination. I thought about Mom's messages, about her sudden interest in my life now that she knew I had valuable assets. In the end, it was almost funny in a sad way. She'd thrown away a relationship with her daughter for the appearance of a perfect family with Victor and his kids. And now she was desperate to get back into my life for the appearance of success and access to my properties. But she taught me one valuable lesson. Family isn't about DNA or marriage certificates. It's about love, support, and being there for each other through good times and bad. I have that with Grandma and Liv. The next morning, I called my lawyer and transferred the lake house deed into a trust for Grandma and myself to share. When I told her, she tried to refuse, tears welling in her eyes. You deserve this more than she ever did, I said. You've been more of a mother to me than she ever was. She hugged me tight, her embrace warm and secure, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged, not in a house of pretense, but in a true home built on love. In an upscale residential area of Manhattan, Kelly Holmes stood by the window on the third floor of the 5-story Holmes family luxury house. The sky, tinged with purple as the day waned, began to highlight the headlights of luxury cars passing by on the street. The cell phone of the 17-year-old girl vibrated. A message from her best friend Julia. Kelly. Emergency. Did the police contact you? Your parents are really worried. Please reply soon. She stared at the screen. The police? Her parents are worried? She didn't understand. As she scrolled, more messages appeared. Is it true you're missing? Where are you? Everyone is looking for you. Kelly's hands began to tremble, and a cold sensation surged through her body. She was definitely here. She had been staying here all week since her parents refused to take her to their wedding. Julia, what are you talking about? I'm here. She sent the reply, and immediately her phone rang. Julia's voice was confused and shaky. What? But your parents filed a missing person report. Haven't you seen Instagram? Everyone's looking at the posts from your parents. Kelly hurriedly opened Instagram. An unbelievable scene unfolded before her. A family photo taken in front of a luxury resort hotel under the blue skies of Hawaii, with palm trees swaying. Her mother in an elegant summer dress, her father in a fine linen suit, her sister Sandra in a designer dress, and her brother Chris in a casual branded suit. A perfect family vacation photo. And her mother's post read, "Our beloved daughter Kelly is missing, and this special day is filled with mixed emotions. We are cooperating with the police in the search, praying for her safety." Kelly's vision blurred. Nausea surged. She felt as if she might collapse right there. She leaned against a luxurious chair by the window, looking around the room. A white-themed interior, designer furniture, and a wall-to-wall bookshelf. Luxurious, yet with a somewhat cold atmosphere. A space that symbolized the 17 years of her life. This was the explanation her parents chose for not wanting her at the wedding. Missing. It all started on a morning in February. At breakfast, her usually cheerful mother announced something important. After living together for 25 years without marriage, her parents had finally decided to have a formal wedding. It's in Hawaii. It'll be a small but lovely ceremony. Her mother, Beth, spoke as if she were talking about a dream. "Sandra, I want you to be my maid of honor." Kelly's sister, Sandra, cheered. "Mom, it's going to be a wonderful ceremony. We'll make everything perfect, from the dress to the hair and makeup." Kelly's father, Richard, smiled at her brother, Chris. "Chris, will you be my best man?" "Of course, Dad. It's an honor." No one looked at Kelly. Around the luxurious dining table, there was a family of 5. But only 4 were actually part of the conversation. Kelly was just there, merely existing. It had always been like that. Her sister and brother had always been the stars, the pride of their parents. Compared to them, Kelly was quite ordinary, with no particular talents to speak of. Just an average child, who might have seemed inferior to her parents, who already had exceptional children. At some point, Kelly began to be treated like she was just air. Initially, she felt out of place, but gradually, she came to accept her situation. The wedding preparations progressed rapidly. Every week, her mother and Sandra visited upscale boutiques, hunting for wedding and party dresses. The two shopping together looked more like best friends than mother and daughter. Her father and Chris went to a luxury tailor for tuxedos. Chris also showed interest in his father's passion for luxury cars, even planning the honeymoon drive. The living room overflowed with wedding planning materials, brochures from luxury hotels, first-class airline information, and detailed notes from meetings with the wedding planner. The family's conversation was always dominated by the wedding. For the decorations at the venue, these white roses are nice. For catering, let's go with a French and Italian fusion. The guest list already has over 100 people. Kelly quietly observed. She was hoping someone would notice her presence. But those hopes were consistently dashed. When the topic of a flower girl came up, for a moment, attention turned to her. But the conclusion came quickly. Sandra's 3-year-old daughter, Ashley, came to be their perfect choice. Ashley will be so cute. Yes, she's the perfect age. Everyone will want to take pictures of her. When her maternal grandmother, Dorothy, suggested that Kelly read a poem at the ceremony, her parents immediately rejected the idea. "We want a simple ceremony," her mother said. "No need for any unnecessary performances," her father added. Kelly painfully understood the true meaning behind those words. She was deemed an unnecessary presence. One evening in May, her father called out to her. "Kelly, can I talk to you for a moment?" In the living room, her mother was looking at pictures of the venue on an expensive tablet. When Kelly entered, her mother turned off the screen. "There's something about the wedding I need to discuss," her mother began, choosing her words carefully while sitting on the leather sofa set. "You." Her mother hesitated. "I think it's better if you don't attend." Kelly couldn't believe her ears. The air in the living room, surrounded by luxury furniture, seemed to freeze instantly. "What do you mean? Our wedding is going to be very elegant," her mother said, caressing the expensive Persian carpet with her toes. "You're not good with that sort of thing, are you? Not good with it." Kelly's voice trembled. The light from the luxurious chandelier suddenly felt too bright. "You don't want to invite me?" Her father cleared his throat from his custom leather armchair. "You're not suited for these kinds of events. You wouldn't handle it well like Sandra or Chris. But I'm your daughter." Kelly's voice echoed faintly in the spacious living room. "That's exactly why." Her mother interjected while absent-mindedly playing with her expensive necklace. "We don't want to embarrass you." At that moment, something inside Kelly crumbled. She felt as if she could hear the last bastion of her family, built over 17 years, collapsing. "Embarrassing?" Kelly's voice rose. The family photos displayed in the living room suddenly looked alien. "I'm your embarrassment." "Not in that way." Her mother stumbled over her words, nervously touching her expensive bracelet. "Then what do you mean?" Anger welled up inside her. "Your own daughter isn't invited." "How does that make sense?" "Kelly." Her father's voice grew stern. "Don't be selfish anymore." "Selfish?" Kelly chuckled bitterly. The family photo on the marble fireplace caught her eye. A perfectly staged facade of happiness. "Wanting to attend my own parents' wedding is selfish. You're always like this." Her mother sighed. "You never try to understand us. Do you know how important this wedding is to us?" "Understand?" Kelly's voice shook. "What about the 17 years I've spent trying to understand you? Have you ever tried to understand my feelings even once?" From that night on, Kelly stayed in her room. Within the expansive space, she felt herself becoming smaller and smaller. Luxurious furniture, designer lighting, and the latest audio equipment. Materially, she lacked nothing. But what was critically missing was love. Her meals were brought to her room by the housekeeper, Patty. Patty's gaze held sympathy, but she couldn't say anything. From her window, Kelly could see her family busy with wedding preparations. Her mother and Sandra returned home, arms laden with designer shopping bags. Her father and Chris went out in a luxury car for tuxedo fittings. Relatives and friends arrived one after another. No one knocked on Kelly's door. The morning before they left, Kelly asked her mother one more time, "Mom, am I really not allowed to attend the wedding?" Her mother looked up from the book she was reading, still seated in the reading chair by the window. "No, we didn't even get you a plane ticket." They hadn't bought her ticket. There was no seat for her on the family's first-class trip. It wasn't a mere oversight. From the start, they hadn't intended to include her in the plans. The next morning, the family left early. Kelly watched from the third-floor window as luggage was loaded into a luxury taxi. Her mother was dressed in the latest designer suit. Her father wore a custom luxury tie. Sandra donned a coveted brand dress, and Chris appeared in a casual yet fine suit. It was like a scene from a perfect family photo. In the morning light of the upscale neighborhood, they shone like they were on the cover of a magazine. However, Kelly was not there. No one looked back. No one said goodbye. It was as if she had never existed from the beginning. Photos were continuously posted on social media. A private beach at a luxury resort in Hawaii, captioned with "spending the best time as a family." A pre-wedding celebration at a 5-star hotel. "With my beloved family, experiencing the best moments of my life. May these happy times last forever. Tomorrow is our special day." The comments section was filled with congratulations. "What a lovely family. The ideal family. I aspire to have a wonderful family like yours." Kelly stared at her expensive smartphone screen. There indeed was her family. In a luxurious place, dressed in expensive clothes, all with perfect smiles. Yet there was nothing to indicate her presence. The meals brought by Patty remained mostly untouched. In the spacious room, only time flowed slowly. The phone call came one evening, a week after the wedding. Kelly, did the police contact you? Your parents are really worried. Please reply soon. Julia's voice was urgent. There was a tension in her best friend's voice that was usually not there. Police? What are you talking about? Kelly's voice trembled. What? You don't know? Your parents filed a missing person report. Haven't you seen Instagram? Everyone is worried. With trembling hands, she opened Instagram. As she scrolled through, an unbelievable number of posts appeared. Her mother's post, "Our youngest daughter is missing, and this special day is filled with complex emotions. We are cooperating with the police in the search. Praying for her safety. Prayers for Kelly, tour beloved daughter, come home soon." Numerous comments were posted. "I'm so sorry. Hope she is found soon. Any clues from the police? How heartbreaking on such a day." Kelly's mind went blank. She felt like she might collapse onto the luxurious floor of her own room. Nausea surged. They knew. They knew she was here. That she was spending time in this room. That they had left her behind. Yet they lied about her being missing. As the evening light filtered into the luxurious room, Kelly stood up. Her parents' lies. They were the culmination of 17 years of neglect and exclusion. She began to prepare carefully. First, the day's newspaper. She placed it in a position where the date was clearly visible. Next, a selfie in her room. With the sunset through the window as the backdrop, her expression calm. Then, she started writing the post. "I am not missing. I am here in my room at home in Manhattan. My parents know I am here because they refused to take me to the wedding. They said, 'You don't fit in.' They didn't even buy me a ticket. They didn't prepare a dress for me. And now, they are lying about me being missing. This is the truth. The ugly truth behind the facade of a perfect family." Before hitting the post button, she took a deep breath. A moment to end 17 years of silence. She pressed the button. The response was faster than expected. Within the first 30 minutes, comments and messages flooded in from friends and relatives. From friends: "Kelly, is this true? Unbelievable. Too cruel. Do you need anything? How can I help?" Messages also poured in from strangers. Kelly's post spread rapidly, accompanied by hashtags like "erase daughter," "fake family," "moment of truth." The family's response was not delayed. 10 missed calls from her mother. The voicemails were frantic. "Kelly, what are you doing? Delete this now. Think about our feelings." Messages also came from her siblings and father. After midnight, a call came. It was from her maternal grandmother, Dorothy. "Kelly." Her grandmother's voice was as warm as ever, yet that night it carried a special strength. "I've seen it all. The social media posts, the comments, and the missing person report." Tears streamed down Kelly's face uncontrollably. "Grandma, you've done well." Her grandmother's voice was gentle. "You've endured alone for 17 years. It's enough now. But I'm only 17, and my parents." Kelly's voice shook. "You don't need to worry about legal matters." Her grandmother reassured her with conviction. "I've spoken with your Uncle Jason. He has already arranged things with a lawyer." "Really?" Hope began to dawn for Kelly. That missing person report was the last straw. Her grandmother explained. "This isn't just a domestic issue. It's a clear case of abuse. The court will be on your side." The next morning, her grandmother outlined a concrete plan. "At 3 p.m. the day after tomorrow, Jason and I will come to pick you up. Just pack the essentials. Don't forget important documents. Your passport, insurance card, school records. You'll need everything." Kelly quietly began to prepare. Packing up 17 years of her life was challenging, but truly essential items were few. On the promised day, just as her parents' taxi, fresh from Hawaii, slid up to the front door, an unexpected scene unfolded. Her grandmother Dorothy and Uncle Jason were waiting, along with a lawyer dressed in a gray suit. They simply froze at the unexpected greeting. "Mom?" Beth's voice trembled. "Why are you here?" "We've come looking for our missing granddaughter." Dorothy's voice was laced with icy sarcasm. Richard stepped forward. "This is a family matter. Outsiders shouldn't." "Outsiders?" Dorothy interrupted. "Who falsely reported their daughter missing." She then pulled out a stack of documents. "Here's the evidence that Kelly has been in her room, including testimony from the housekeeper, Patty." The color drained from the parents' faces. "Kelly, come down," Dorothy called. Kelly began descending the stairs slowly, suitcase and a small bag in hand. Her 17 years of life were packed inside. "What are you thinking?" Richard confronted her, his high-end suit collar disheveled. "Making such a shameful post on social media. Is my post an embarrassing one?" Kelly looked directly at her father, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Or is it more embarrassing that my parents lied about me being missing?" "We were thinking of you too," Beth started to say. Tears streaked her suntanned cheeks. "Thinking of me?" Kelly's voice rose. "Excluding me out from the trip?" "Faking my disappearance." A heavy silence filled the grand entrance hall. The crystal chandelier cast a cold light. "Why?" Kelly asked quietly. "Why missing?" "It's about appearances," Beth unexpectedly answered, nervously clutching her expensive handbag. "How could we tell anyone that our daughter refused to attend the wedding? Our reputation would be—" "I refused." Kelly's voice quivered. "You excluded me. You've always been different," Beth shouted. "You never try to meet our expectations like Sandra and Chris. Always alone, always choosing a different path from us. So that makes it okay to erase me." No one answered. Shadows stretched across the marble floor as the evening deepened. "Kelly, let's go." Dorothy spoke gently. As Kelly headed towards the entrance with her luggage, Beth called out to her in a panic. "Wait." She rushed over, her designer high heels clicking on the floor. "You're still a minor. You can't just—" "That's enough." Dorothy interrupted calmly. "Look at this." The lawyer produced new documents. "These are petition papers for the court." The lawyer's voice resonated. "Evidence of abuse and neglect. False missing person reports on social media. It's all recorded. Are you trying to threaten us?" Richard's voice was a low growl. "It's not a threat." The lawyer continued evenly. "It's a presentation of facts. We hope to proceed amicably from here." The parents were at a loss for words. A heavy silence fell in the ornately decorated entrance. Before heading to the taxi, Kelly turned back one last time. Her parents stood frozen at the entrance of the luxury house. Beth wiped her tears with a luxury brand handkerchief, while Richard looked off into the distance with a stern face. 17 years. Kelly's voice echoed quietly. "In the 17 years of my life, have you ever truly seen me as part of the family?" There was no response. Instead, the evening breeze was the only answer. The taxi started to move. Dorothy quietly held Kelly's hand. "It's the beginning of a new chapter, Kelly." From the backseat window, the luxury house gradually became smaller. A place filled with 17 years of memories. A stage for a family that was perfect only in pretense. The place where she was erased. Tears streamed down her cheeks. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of liberation. The first step towards a new life. That night, Kelly's post became national news. Wealthy family alienates teen daughter, modern family's darkness revealed through social media. The true voice of a missing girl. The hidden side of a perfect family image. There were requests for interviews from TV stations. Newspapers wanted interviews. Publishing houses offered book deals. However, Kelly turned them all down. She wasn't ready yet. She wanted to focus on reclaiming herself. Instead, she began to write. On her blog, she shared her honest feelings. "I am no longer the erased one. This is the start of my new story. For those tired of playing the perfect family, you are not alone." St. Mary's High School was worlds apart from the private high school in Manhattan that Kelly had attended. There was no competition for brand-name goods. Instead, there were warm smiles and genuine words. On the first day, a classmate named Jessica approached her naturally. "You're new, right? Want to have lunch together?" Kelly hesitated for a moment. This was an act of kindness without any expectation of return, something she had never experienced before. Students who had seen her posts on social media did not pry unnecessarily. "Kelly, look at this." One day during lunch, Jessica handed her the school newspaper. "The literary club is looking for writers." Kelly was intrigued. She had always been good at writing, but her parents had dismissed it as a waste of time. Study business or law, they would say. "Why don't you try?" Jessica encouraged her. "I think you have talent." From that day, Kelly began to write. It started with journal-like short pieces. Gradually, she moved on to stories and poems. By expressing her emotions through words, she felt the burdens inside her lighten. Her first short story in the school newspaper, "The Voice of the Erased Girl," received more feedback than expected. A story of a girl ignored by her family and falsely declared missing. The true story, presented as fiction, drew remarkable attention. A girl raised to be invisible, breathing quietly under the mask of a perfect family. And the day she decided to raise her voice, she washed away the false label of missing with the truth. "Kelly, this is an amazing piece," said Mizu Baker, her literature teacher, in a quiet voice. "Your words have a soul." Kelly's story spread beyond the school. It was featured in local newspapers, recommended for literary awards, and shared widely online. Unexpected responses arrived. An email from her mother, Beth. "I read it. For the first time, I might understand the weight of what we've done. Your words have opened my eyes." A message from her sister, Sandra. "I never truly considered how you felt. We were so focused on playing perfect that we lost sight of what was important. I'm sorry." A letter from her brother, Chris. "We pretended not to notice. That was our greatest sin. Your courage exposed the falsehoods in our family." Kelly's story resonated with people she never expected. One day, a call came from an unknown number. "Hello, is this Kelly?" A calm woman's voice. "I'm your father's sister." "Your Aunt Megan." Kelly gasped. The aunt who appeared in only one family photo at her home. The one rumored to have been ostracized by the family. 20 years ago, I was also erased from the family." Megan's voice continued. "As someone who didn't fit the perfect family image. Back then, no one had the courage to speak up." The conversation with Megan gave Kelly a new perspective. The Holmes family has a tradition of erasing passed down through generations. Megan's voice held old pain. "I wanted to be a painter, but it was deemed unsuitable for the family stature. I was opposed by our parents and denied by your father. And eventually it was made to seem as though I had run away." Kelly took notes with trembling hands. The family's twisted tradition, invisible chains, and the stories of those who tried to break them. One day, the results from the state's Young Writers Contest arrived. Mizu Kelly Holmes, your work, The Erased Ones, The Truth Behind the False Missing Person Report, has been selected as the first prize winner in the high school category. She celebrated by hugging her grandmother. The story was also prominently featured in the local newspaper. And then, another unexpected response came. An email from her father, Richard. "Congratulations. We failed to understand your talent. No, we chose not to understand. Trapped by the so-called tradition of the Holmes family. About Megan and about you." The email from her father continued. We were captivated by the illusion of a perfect family. Only now do I realize how great the cost has been. Losing Megan, and then you. Perhaps it was a curse-like chain within the Holmes family. A lengthy email also arrived from her mother. Every day, I reread your article. We tried to erase your very existence with the lie of missing that was the lowest act as a mother. I don't expect to be forgiven, but your voice has certainly reached us. Kelly did not reply. She felt it wasn't time yet. Instead, she began writing a new novel, The Genealogy of the Erased. The story of 3 generations of erased individuals in the Holmes family. Aunt Megan's dreams of being a painter, and her own experiences. Each time she wrote, it felt as though a weight was being lifted from her heart. Words were freeing her. Kelly. Her grandmother said one day in the garden, "You are the first in our family to speak up. Do you realize how much hope you've given to so many?" Indeed, her voice had reached. One day, her parents came to visit her grandmother's house. "We want to talk," her father said, his voice softer than ever. Kelly looked towards her grandmother, who nodded quietly. "We've been foolish." Her mother's voice trembled. "We never truly saw you, and we hurt you in the worst way. Why the missing lie?" Kelly finally asked the question she had longed to know. It was embarrassing. Her father answered, "We were afraid of our perfect family image breaking. But in the end, we made the worst choices." Kelly listened in silence. "We're not asking for forgiveness." Her mother continued, "But we completely misjudged your talent, your very existence. We want to acknowledge that." Kelly did not accept her parents' apology. It was still too soon. However, something within her had begun to change. She no longer needed her parents' approval. She no longer needed to meet her family's expectations. She had her own story to tell. As spring arrived, Kelly stood in her grandmother's garden, holding a college acceptance letter. She had been accepted to the prestigious creative writing program at a state university. Her parents, in the past, would have staunchly opposed her choice to pursue literature. Now, however, she had the freedom to choose her own path in life. The flowers in her grandmother's garden seemed incomparably more beautiful than they had been a year ago. Contacts from her family had become rare. She received occasional messages from her mother, such as, "I read your new novel. I am proud of your talent." A formal card from her father arrived on her birthday. But lately, the words had begun to warm slightly. She also received text messages from her brother, who seemed to feel some pangs of conscience. "Heard you won another award for your new work? That's amazing." And then an invitation came from her sister. "If it's okay with you, maybe this Christmas." Yet these no longer disturbed her peace of mind. Kelly had gained the strength to make her own choices at her own pace. Her story, The Voice of the Erased Girl, had become nationally recognized. It delved into a family's twisted affection, the modern weapon of social media, and the extreme lie of missing. The tale resonated deeply with many people. There were even interview requests from TV stations. Your experience is giving courage to many young people. However, Kelly felt she was not yet ready for that. She wanted to focus on writing her own story. As graduation approached, Kelly wrote a letter to her grandmother. "Dear grandmother, a year has passed since you rescued me that day. This year, I've learned a lot. That family doesn't necessarily mean blood relations. That love is not conditional. And above all, that I have worth. When my parents declared me missing ironically, I found my true self. That lie gave me the strength to tell my truth. There may still be challenges ahead, but I am no longer afraid, because I have discovered who I truly am. With all my love, Kelly." The gentle spring sunlight illuminated the flowers in the garden. Now, she could walk her own path on her own terms, no longer erased by anyone. And more importantly, she could tell her own story. That is her greatest victory. The doors of the upscale hotel swung open, and I was greeted by the luxurious light of an opulent chandelier. In the entrance, elegantly dressed people gathered, with women in glittering dresses engaging in graceful conversations. The moment I laid eyes on this scene, I felt a small pang in my chest. I was supposed to be the main person of this party. Yet, I could feel no warmth of celebration for my presence anywhere in this place. It was my 30th birthday. My family had invited me, saying, "Since it's a special occasion, let's celebrate it grandly." And I had decided to meet them after a long time. We had been estranged for a while, but I thought it might not be so bad to be celebrated by my blood-related family. However, I was naive. As I stood in front of the reception, the staff member looked me up and down. "Are you on the guest list?" he asked, with an expression as if he were looking at someone out of place. I confidently stated my name. However, he looked puzzled. "Please wait a moment, miss," he said. While I waited, puzzled myself, my mother Maggie and my sister Christina eventually appeared. They were dressed up and wore the smiles of upper-class ladies, but their expressions slightly clouded over when they saw me. "Oh, Isabella, you're here," they said. "It's been a while," they said, but there was a subtle coolness in their voices. "But there's no seat for you, Isabella," they continued. "What? What do you mean?" I was in disbelief. My mother continued without breaking her smile. "The party reservation was made quite some time ago, and it's too late to add a seat now. Why don't you have a meal at a pub nearby? Isn't that a good idea?" I was taken aback. A pub? Was this a joke? I was supposed to be the main person of this party. True, I had kept some distance from my family, but I was still supposed to be invited by them. Seeing my expression, Christina shrugged. "Well, you work at a pub, right? It might be more comfortable for you there," she said, her tone clearly contemptuous. I tried to say something, but no words came out. They just saw me as the sister who works at a pub. "Don't take it the wrong way, Isabella. It's just that there's a place that suits you," my mother said with a kind voice, but the thorn in her words pierced my heart. It was as if they were saying I didn't belong there. My vision blurred slightly. Frustration, sadness, and anger all mixed together and choked up in my throat. Yet, I just smiled. "I got it. Sorry to have bothered you," I said. I turned on my heel. They looked almost relieved. Without looking back, I left the hotel. The cold night air caressed my cheeks. The bright lights of the party venue faded into the distance. As I walked, I thought back on my life. From childhood, I had been the daughter who couldn't make the grade, in my mother's eyes. My sister was academically excellent, sociable, and the pride of the family. I loved baking, but that was considered just a hobby. Yet, my father was different. He always said my cakes were delicious and ate them with joy. He smiled proudly every time I got better at baking. However, he passed away from an illness when I was 12. Before I could recover from the loss of my father, my mother remarried. My stepfather showed little interest in me, favoring my sister instead. To him, my sister was a daughter to boast about because of her academic and social successes. I became like air within the house, unacknowledged no matter what I did. Still, I wanted their recognition and kept striving tirelessly. But no matter how much I tried, I never appeared successful in their eyes. Nevertheless, I continued on my own path. After graduating from a vocational school, I left home, stopped communicating with my family, and began my apprenticeship at a 3-star restaurant in France. I had always been passionate about baking and studied pastry, but I felt the need to learn authentic techniques in France. It was lonely and challenging at first, not understanding the language and being in a foreign land, but I honed my skills and continued to challenge myself. Through trial and error, I gradually gained confidence and eventually decided to open my own shop. Opening the shop was not easy, and I faced many challenges. There were times of financial hardship and periods when sales did not grow as expected. However, I never gave up. My passion for baking and the experience I gained through trial and error supported me, and gradually more customers came, and my reputation grew. Now, gourmets from around the world seek my cakes. Seeing this, I feel that my efforts have been rewarded, and these moments bring me the greatest joy. No matter how tough the road, I have learned the importance of believing in myself and continuing to walk my path. Yet, my family still sees me as just a pub worker. My sister Christina is married to Nicholas, an investment banker. Nicholas is an elite in the finance industry, dealing with asset management and mergers and acquisitions, and not only does he have a high income, but he is also well known in social circles. Due to his job, my sister Christina is often invited to glamorous parties and upscale restaurants, leading a wealthy life. Of course, her lifestyle is not due to her own efforts, but all thanks to Nicholas. My parents also enjoy a luxurious life with the help of Nicholas's support. They live in an affluent neighborhood and enjoy days free of inconvenience with travels and shopping. I suddenly laughed to myself. That's enough. People don't change that easily. At that moment, I decided to never contact my family again. I don't need their recognition to be myself. There are others who value me. I looked up at the night sky and took a deep breath. The cold air seemed to calm the anger deep in my chest. My life wouldn't change one bit without my family. With that thought, I slowly walked towards my home. Suddenly, my smartphone vibrated. It was a message from Jonathan, my manager. "Isabella, it's an emergency. Come to the shop immediately." Jonathan's voice was unusually urgent. I was startled and involuntarily stopped. "Jonathan, what happened? Explain to me." "I'll explain later. Just hurry, Isabella." His tone suggested something serious. I immediately turned around and ran to the shop. When I arrived, the shop was dark and eerily quiet. "Jonathan, are you there?" I called out nervously. At that moment, "Happy birthday, Isabella." Suddenly, the shop lit up brightly, and the smiling faces of the staff spread before me. Surprised, I stood still with my eyes wide open. On the counter, there was a special birthday cake made just for me. The staff popped crackers and surrounded me with smiles. "Happy birthday, Isabella. Congratulations on turning 30. This is our way of saying thank you for all you do, Isabella." The warm words from everyone filled my heart. Even if my family didn't recognize me, there were people who truly valued me. Holding back tears, I slowly smiled. "Thank you, everyone. Really, thank you." I was touched by the warm celebration from the staff and suddenly wondered, "But how did you know I was coming back?" When I asked, Jonathan smiled sheepishly. "Actually, we sent a surprise birthday cake to the hotel for you, but when the staff told us you had left, we decided to celebrate here instead." "Oh, I see." I was surprised but felt a warm glow in my heart. I was overwhelmed with gratitude to have colleagues who cared so much for me. "Jonathan, everyone. Really, thank you." Jonathan smiled broadly and said, "Now, let's eat the cake." Everyone cheered. At that moment, I truly felt that my real family was right here. I am known as a talented patissier who owns a famous patisserie called Patisserie Éclat, with 3 stores. My shop is loved by many for its innovative sweets and refined ambience, and its reputation is so widespread that reservations are often booked 3 months in advance. Harvard professors and upper-class individuals are regulars, and gourmets regard it as a must-visit establishment. My name has become well known through various media and food enthusiasts. Yet even with such success, I had never once shared this with my family. I kept my distance from them, rarely exchanging words. I had no interest in sharing my success or deepening my relationship with them. From a young age, they had dismissed my dream of becoming a patissier as an unstable job. When I decided to attend a culinary school after middle school, my mother and sister did not understand my decision. They valued stable professions, social status, and financial power and questioned the path I chose. They always demanded practical choices without understanding my passion for baking or my pursuit of my dream. I felt confused and lonely in my heart due to the difference in values with my family. Therefore, I distanced myself from them, and even after achieving success through my efforts, I did not confide in them. For me, Patisserie Éclat was not just a shop but a place to prove myself. Even if my family didn't recognize me, I could captivate people with my skill and passion. That pride kept me moving forward. 2 months after my birthday, an international patissier competition was held. Our Patisserie Éclat team won the competition. Top patissiers from around the world gathered to compete under strict judging for their skills and creativity. I led the team and poured all my efforts into it. When the results were announced, a rush of joy and relief overwhelmed me, and tears flowed. The news of our victory spread both inside and outside the industry, attracting even more attention to our shop. Amidst this, one day, a famous gourmet TV program contacted us for an interview. Although I had avoided public appearances, I saw this as a good opportunity to let the world know about the hard work of my staff, so I decided to accept the interview. Little did I know that the broadcast would have an unexpected impact on my family. Time passed since the day of the interview, and finally the day of the broadcast arrived. I gathered with my staff in front of the TV in the shop, nervously awaiting the moment. The screen showed me, somewhat bewildered by the unfamiliar interview, discussing the shop's dedication, and my staff earnestly engaged in their cooking. Cheers erupted every time our shop was mentioned, and we shared smiles among ourselves. The host on the screen introduced Patisserie Éclat as a renowned shop loved by gourmets around the world, and I watched the broadcast with a sense of pride. As soon as the broadcast ended, my smartphone rang. It was from my mother, Maggie. I pressed the answer button with a bit of surprise, and immediately my mother's excited voice came through. "Hello, Isabella. What is all this about?" Her voice was full of surprise and confusion. "What do you mean? I just saw it on a TV show. What's this about your shop, Patisserie Éclat? Aren't you working at a pub?" I took a deep breath and replied calmly, "Mom, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not working at a pub. I'm the owner of Patisserie Éclat." "What? So that shop they said was booked out for 3 months. That's yours?" "Yes, Mom. I've always wanted to master baking pastries, and now it has become a famous shop visited by gourmets worldwide." There was a gasp from the other side of the phone. "But Isabella, why didn't you say anything?" I chuckled bitterly. "You and Christina always dismissed my desire to become a patissier. You said baking was just playing, and that it wasn't a stable job." My mother was silent. That's why I stopped explaining. I thought I had to prove it by myself. There was a small sigh from my mother. "I see. But Isabella, your shop is very popular, right?" "Well, yes." "Then shouldn't you promote it more?" "What?" "This is perfect. Let's throw a party to celebrate your success. I'll invite lots of people I know. It's a chance to spread your shop's name even more." "Wait a moment, Mom," I said, as I frowned. When my mother talks about people she knows, it always involves Christina or relatives and others who are just there to maintain her own social standing. It didn't seem like she was truly thinking of my best interest. Frustrated by her words, I exhaled deeply and hung up the phone without another word. Whatever her scheme was, it had nothing to do with me. However, weeks later, I found myself reluctantly at the event my mother had planned. Isabella's success celebration party was held on a grand scale. The guests were mostly acquaintances from my mother's social circle, business associates of Christina and her husband Nicholas, and others who seemed to want to capitalize on my success. I wasn't keen on it. It felt like I had been dragged there. "Isabella, it's a party for you, so try to enjoy it." My mother said that with a smile, but her eyes lacked genuine affection, and I could see the cold calculations as if she was appraising merchandise. I sighed and decided to play the role assigned to me. I had to perform the duties of the main character and behave in a way that did not disrupt the atmosphere of the event. As I was pondering this, a blond man in a suit looked at me with interest. He approached me, seeming a bit perplexed, and spoke. "Hello, I'm Nicholas, Christina's husband. I paused for a moment. My sister's husband? Nice to meet you, I'm Isabella. I exchanged a handshake while hiding my surprise, and Nicholas showed a complex expression. Actually, I only learned about you recently. I saw the feature on Patisserie Éclair on a TV show, and asked Christina if you were her sister, and she finally admitted it. I see. I responded with a dry smile. I thought she was an only child since you weren't at our wedding, but I was surprised when I saw the TV show, to have such a successful sister. So my sister had been hiding my existence. My sister wanted to pretend I didn't exist. To her, having a sister who aspired to be a patissier was probably an embarrassment. I didn't hear it that way. Nicholas furrowed his brow, looking troubled. Nevertheless, your desserts are incredible. They're all so delicate and beautiful, almost like works of art. Thank you. But honestly, I didn't want to come to this party. I figured as much. Nicholas chuckled softly. Still, the fact that you came means you haven't completely given up on your family, right? I was at a loss for words. Indeed, if I had intended to cut ties completely, I wouldn't have shown up at the party at all. Let's see how this goes, I said, smiling ambiguously as I gently gripped the dessert knife in my hand. Within my family, I had always been a surplus presence. But now, things are different. I had made it this far on my own strength. And no matter how Christina treated me, I'm now living with pride. After being freed from the stifling party, I was finally able to return home. Reflecting on the uncomfortable time at the glamorous venue, I sighed. Indeed, the distance between me and my family was not easily bridged. A few days later, I received a call from Christina. Isabella, I want to celebrate a friend's birthday at your shop. You'll prepare a special seat for us, right? I was surprised by her sudden request. My sister Christina, who had always denied my existence, was trying to treat me as a sibling. But it was clear that this was not a genuine approach. Christina, I'm sorry, but we're fully booked that day. I politely declined. However, Christina did not give up. What? But we're family, right? Can't you make an exception? Please? It's for a very important friend. My shop's policy is to treat all customers equally, I explained. Her tone became slightly colder. I see. Then, I'll ask for another day. Although she backed down that time, Christina repeatedly asked for special seating and VIP treatment afterward. Isabella, can't you reserve the entire cafe space for us? I'm bringing a group of investors' wives who know my husband. Could you prepare a special dessert set just for that day? Each time, I continued to refuse. I had no intention of giving special treatment just because we were family. Moreover, I felt a strong discomfort with Christina using my shop to conveniently improve her social standing. I had continued to pursue my dream and had built up this restaurant as a result. I could not sacrifice my principles or the way I conducted my business to meet my family's expectations. One day, after closing the restaurant, Nicholas was waiting outside. I need to talk to you, Isabella, he said, his expression serious. Isabella, let me ask you something. What do you think about Christina? What about her? You know she's trying to use your shop, right? What? I was surprised. Nicholas had suspected it. Christina told me she was supporting you because you're family, but actually, she just wants to use you for her own image. I nodded quietly. It's always been like that, denying my dreams while treating me like family only when it suited her. If I hadn't been successful, there wouldn't have been such a party. Nicholas sighed. I didn't know that side of Christina until I married her. But meeting you, I've come to understand her true nature. Nicholas. Isabella, I can't take it anymore. I now understand why you weren't acknowledged as family. She always judges people based on what value they have for her. His words made the feelings that had been sinking in my heart quietly surface. Nicholas. Are you thinking about divorce? To be honest, I've already decided. Nicholas looked at me slowly. If I hadn't met you, I might have never realized this. But seeing your success, I've come to realize that life isn't about being controlled by someone else, you know. As I listened to his words, I felt a slight sense of salvation. It was several months later when I heard that Nicholas and Christina's divorce had been finalized. I wasn't particularly surprised when I heard the news. From what Nicholas had said that day, I had known that this was inevitable. However, what surprised me more was the subsequent change in my family. Once the divorce was finalized, Christina could no longer maintain the elegant lifestyle she had built up. Dependent on his income and social status, the divorce marked the beginning of her downfall. Moreover, my parents were also pushed into a financially difficult situation. Although they had lived a wealthy life, it was only sustainable with Nicholas's support. When the support ceased following the divorce, their savings quickly diminished. One day, I received a call from my mother after a long time. "Isabella, please, I need to talk to you." I hesitated, but decided to meet her in person. At the cafe where we met, my mother and sister looked like completely different people from before. They, who had worn luxury brands, were now in simple clothes and looked utterly exhausted. "It's been a while, Mom, Christina," I said, and both my mother and sister averted their eyes in apparent shame. "Isabella, I'm truly sorry about everything." My mother started quietly. "When you said you wanted to be a patissier, we looked down on you. But now, I finally understand just how much effort you've put in," Christina continued. "I also regret denying your dreams. It's too late to ask for forgiveness now, isn't it?" I stared at them intently. I'm not generous enough to forgive people immediately just because I received an apology. Both my mother and sister Christina slumped their shoulders. However, I continued, "But, I always wanted you to understand. A person's worth isn't determined by their financial wealth." My mother and sister listened silently. "When I pursued being a patissier, you dismissed it as unstable or a trivial job. But I think anyone who takes pride in their work is respectable, regardless of the job. On the other hand, those who rely solely on others without trying to live on their own might be truly impoverished. Don't you think?" My mother nodded quietly, and Christina bit her lip. Later, I heard that Christina had started working as a waitress at a diner. Initially confused, she began to understand the meaning of living on her own through her busy daily work. My mother also decided to work as a cleaner along with my stepfather. By doing the work they had previously left to servants, they seemed to finally understand the value of labor. Seeing them like this lightened my heart a little. I hadn't completely forgiven them, but if my family was acknowledging their mistakes and trying to move forward, I wanted to watch over them. The bonds of family can be broken in a moment, but repairing them takes time. Still, we would slowly build a new relationship. A few months later, I visited the diner. Seeing my sister Christina working confidently, I was surprised. She was like a different person, working with pride. That sight made me feel something. And one weekend, at a diner where the family gathered, I softly said, "Next time, let's have dinner at my place. I'll bake a cake. What do you think?" The moment I uttered those words, I felt a warm atmosphere flow through us. Although it was gradual, we were slowly reclaiming our family bond. In a modern glass office building in Manhattan, New York, standing 35 floors tall, Ashley Holmes stood facing a large window on the top floor. It was December 23rd, at 3 p.m. She silently watched as the falling snow transformed the usually bustling financial district into a quiet, silvery world. Her desk was buried underneath investment analysis reports for the fourth quarter of the year, and her walls adorned with numerous awards as a financial analyst. At 35, Ashley was known as one of the most excellent senior analysts at the investment bank. "Will it really go well tomorrow?" she muttered to herself with a sigh, her usually confident expression wavering. It had been 15 years since her father's passing. During that time, Ashley had immersed herself in her work to sustain herself. Her income of $150,000 and carefully managed savings were proof of her efforts. A new notification appeared on her smartphone. It was the latest Instagram post from her brother Brian, showing off a new Rolex with the caption, "Life is great." #luxurious living. Happy family. Another new watch. Ashley frowned. Her brother had been squandering their father's inheritance as if it would last forever. His wife, Vanessa, was of the same ilk, posting pictures of luxury brand bags and accessories almost daily. Her mother, Hillary, and stepfather, Douglas, also lived a lavish life in an upscale residence in Florida. Ashley had received a call from her mother the night before, as usual, about money. "Ashley, listen," her mother's voice had a saccharine tone. "Brian wants to buy a new car. He needs a down payment." "All right, I'll transfer it again." Ashley responded clearly, having acceded to similar requests many times before. She supported her parents' extravagant lifestyle and assisted her brother financially. From her desk drawer, she took out a photo the last Christmas with her father. The picture was taken in the hospital, and though he was frail, he had a warm smile. "Dad, I'm trying hard," she whispered to the photo before shifting her gaze to a reservation confirmation next to it. The high-end resort in the Aspen Mountains, Skytop Lodge. She had booked 34 suites at $800 per night for the Christmas period, totaling about $10,000. It was a significant decision, even on her income. This trip wasn't just a family vacation for Ashley, it was the last chance to mend her relationship with her family. By bearing all costs and creating time to spend with the entire family, she hoped something might change. The office phone rang. It was a confirmation call from Skytop Lodge. They wanted to make final arrangements for her stay starting tomorrow. Ashley straightened up, switching to her usual professional mode. "Yes, Ashley here. Regarding tomorrow's matter." While on the phone, Ashley looked out the window again. It was a winter afternoon filled with mixed feelings of anticipation and anxiety. In the center of Ashley's room, a Louis Vuitton suitcase was only half packed. On the bed, a dark green cashmere sweater she planned to wear the next day was neatly folded. While not a $30,000 sweater, its high-quality material and simple design reflected Ashley's tastes and life philosophy. "Is this the right outfit?" she murmured, holding the dark green sweater against her chest in front of the mirror. Vanessa always wore the latest designer brands, and her mother had grown to prefer flashy clothes to match Douglas's luxurious tastes. The phone rang. It was William. "Is everything progressing?" His voice carried its usual kindness, tinged with concern. "Yes, mostly," Ashley replied, sounding a bit tired. "I've given the staff at Skytop Lodge special instructions. Contact me immediately if anything happens." William was a renowned hotel chain owner in the U.S., and Skytop Lodge was one of his luxury resorts. They had met at an investors' conference 2 years ago and had been building a steady relationship since. "Thank you. But it'll be okay," Ashley continued as she walked towards the window. "I believe this time will be different. This trip will change something." After hanging up the phone, Ashley sat down on the sofa in her living room. A photo of her last moment with her father was placed on the coffee table. It was 15 years ago, just before her father passed away. In a white hospital room, her emaciated father had gently held Ashley's hand and said, "You're strong. You're the only one I can trust to take care of the family." With those words in her heart, Ashley had studied relentlessly, graduated from college with excellent grades, and made her way up in the world of finance. She worked as hard as her male colleagues and reached the position of senior analyst at an investment bank in her early 30s. Meanwhile, her brother Brian had dropped out of college following their father's death, and with the indulgence of his stepfather, continued to live off the inheritance. After getting married, he and his wife, Vanessa, maintained a luxurious lifestyle. Ashley's smartphone vibrated with a message from Brian. "You're picking me up tomorrow morning, right? Don't oversleep." His typically arrogant tone came through even in text. Ashley briefly replied, "Of course." She had mixed feelings about using her own car for transportation. Typically, Brian used premium taxi services and hardly ever drove his own car. Looking at the clock, it was already past 10 p.m. She had to pick up her family early the next morning. Ashley sighed as she began to organize the rest of her luggage. Whether it was anticipation for tomorrow, her heartbeat quickened slightly. Looking at her father's photo one last time, his smile seemed encouraging. "Tomorrow will surely go well," she murmured to herself as she headed to the bedroom. It seemed it would take a while to fall into a quiet sleep, with a mix of anticipation and anxiety about the next day. On Christmas Eve morning, Manhattan was enveloped in a silvery world of snow. The clock showed 6 a.m. Ashley woke up before her alarm clock rang. "Today's the day," she said to herself as she took a deep breath and got out of bed. She woke up 30 minutes earlier than planned, which was actually better. She wanted to be fully prepared before picking up her family. In front of the large mirror in the bathroom, Ashley carefully applied her makeup. Around her neck, she wore a single diamond necklace that was a keepsake from her father. Her simple yet elegant attire reflected who Ashley was. Perfect. The confidence she had cultivated over 35 years of life, and the anxiety about the upcoming events subtly intertwined in the mirror's reflection. The underground parking garage of her luxury apartment building was quieter than usual. Most residents were probably still asleep on Christmas Eve morning. Ashley's black Mercedes-Benz S550 gleamed under the garage lights. As she started the car, the navigation system displayed the route. The first destination was the upscale apartment on the Upper East Side where her mother and stepfather lived. From there, she would head to Brian and Vanessa's new home in Brooklyn. The roads were clear, but careful driving was necessary due to the snow. When she arrived at the Upper East Side, her mother, Hillary, was already waiting at the entrance of the apartment, dressed in a flashy red coat and holding a large Gucci bag. Her stepfather, Douglas, got into the back seat without a word. "Good morning," Ashley, her mother's voice had a contrived tone, as if greeting a high-end taxi driver. Next, they went to Brian and Vanessa's house in Brooklyn. The couple had recently moved to an expensive area, despite rumors that their inheritance was running low, continuing to keep up appearances. "Ashley, you're late." Brian's voice carried his usual arrogance. Vanessa was dressed in a new Gucci coat, holding a matching bag. Both looked as if they had stepped out of a fashion magazine. With everyone aboard, Ashley carefully took the wheel. Brian sat in the passenger seat, constantly fiddling with his smartphone, probably making another boastful post. The atmosphere inside the car was heavy. Apart from occasional whispers between Hillary and Vanessa, there was hardly any conversation. After about 2 hours of driving, the snow-covered peaks of the Pocono Mountains came into view, breathtakingly beautiful, and eased some of Ashley's tension. "Ah, you can see it now," Brian suddenly exclaimed. The luxurious structure of Skytop Lodge appeared amidst the snowy landscape. The grand building, styled in Italian Renaissance, displayed a stunning harmony with the surrounding nature. A giant Christmas tree decorated the front entrance, and illuminations sparkled everywhere. Luxury cars arrived one after another, and wealthy families alighted. When Ashley parked the car in front of the entrance, a uniformed bellboy approached. From that moment, everything began to change. "You've worked hard to get us here." Brian's voice, icy cold, resonated inside the car. Ashley twisted around to look at the back seat. There, she saw her brother with a malicious smirk she had never seen before. Her mother, Hillary, and stepfather, Douglas, averted their gazes, while Vanessa gave a small smile. Ashley instinctively felt that something bad was about to happen. "The driver's job ends here. This hotel is for us, the real family only," Brian declared. Ashley was momentarily stunned. It felt as though the temperature inside the car had plummeted. "What do you mean?" Ashley's voice trembled slightly. "I made the reservations." "Oh, the reservations," Brian sneered. "They've already been changed. Just to our names." Her mother, Hillary, looked troubled but said nothing. Her stepfather, Douglas, continued to look out the window. Vanessa did not bother to hide her malicious grin. Everyone except Ashley got out of the car. Brian instructed the bellboy to take the luggage. Ashley slowly took out her smartphone, consciously trying not to let her hands tremble, and pressed William's number. After a few rings, his calm voice came through. "Hello, Ashley." "William, cancel the reservations." Ashley's voice maintained an unexpected calm. "All of them, please." After a moment of silence on the other end, William seemed to understand the situation. "Understood. I'll arrange it right away." At that moment, a staff member in uniform approached from the front desk. Against the backdrop of white snow, the black uniform stood out sharply. From inside the car, Ashley watched everything through the window. "I'm sorry, we cannot find your reservation," the staff member informed them. The smile vanished from Brian's face. Hillary began fumbling through her purse in a panic. Douglas turned to face the front for the first time. There must be some mistake. Hillary's anxious muttering was audible. Ashley slowly rolled down the car window. "It's no mistake." Ashley's voice was calm. "All reservations have been canceled. Goodbye." "Ashley, wait." Brian's voice carried a note of desperation. "It's just a joke, you know that, right?" But Ashley had already started the engine and grasped the steering wheel. In the rearview mirror, she saw her family standing perplexed. Vanessa's expensive boots sank into the snow. "Ashley." Hillary's voice faded with the wind. The car slowly exited the hotel parking lot and began retracing its path. The snow continued to fall. A single tear rolled down Ashley's cheek. It was more a tear of liberation than of sorrow. Her smartphone began to ring. It was Brian calling. She ignored it. Then came a call from Hillary. Ignored as well. Messages started arriving one after another. "Why would you do this? It's Christmas Eve. You've embarrassed us. Will you refund the accommodation costs?" Ashley let out a small laugh at the last message. In the end, their interest was always in money. Not in love or familial bonds, just calculations and pretenses. As Ashley drove down the mountain, heading towards the city, she decided not to go to her own apartment, but instead to William's penthouse. She felt a refreshing sense of clarity reflecting from her expression in the rearview mirror. The streetlights gently illuminated the falling snow, adding a peaceful glow to the festive evening. The quietness inside the car, devoid of any passengers in the back seat, was surprisingly comforting. 2 hours later, Ashley's car slid into the underground parking garage of William's penthouse. Stepping into the elevator, she felt a warm sensation spreading inside her chest. It was clear to her that she was headed to the right place. When she opened the door to the penthouse, she was greeted by the warmth of the space and William's presence. The fireplace was already lit, softly lighting up the living room. "Ashley, are you okay?" William asked, his voice filled with deep care. "Yes." Ashley smiled back. "Actually, I feel relieved." William quietly listened while preparing 2 glasses of wine as Ashley shared everything. Brian's malicious smile, her mother Hillary's evasive gaze, and the actions she herself had taken. "Ashley, you made the right choice." William assured her from the sofa in front of the fireplace. "But I ruined their Christmas because of me," Ashley muttered, gazing at the wine glass in her hand. "That's not true." William's voice was gentle yet firm. "They ruined their own Christmas. You just protected your own worth." Tears welled up in Ashley's eyes, but they were not tears of sorrow. Instead, they were tears of relief from the burden she had carried for years. Her smartphone vibrated again. This time, it was a message from her stepfather, Douglas. "Because of your selfishness, you've embarrassed the entire family. Don't ever show your face again." Ashley turned off her smartphone completely. William placed his hand on her shoulder, offering a warmth she had never felt from her family before. "From tomorrow, a new life begins," Ashley declared, looking into the flames of the fireplace. "I won't let anyone interfere with my life anymore." William nodded silently. For Ashley, this was the most meaningful Christmas Eve ever. She hadn't lost her family, she had reclaimed her true self. The keepsake necklace from her father softly glittered in the light of the fireplace. On Christmas morning, Manhattan was enveloped in a silvery white world. The view from the windows of William's penthouse looked like a postcard, with snow continuing to fall gently between the high rises, softly covering up the events of the previous day. "Good morning, honey." William greeted her as he was already making coffee. The aroma of espresso filled the room. "I got a call from Skytop Lodge this morning." William started quietly. "Your family made quite a scene." Standing by the window with a mug cupped in her hands, Ashley responded calmly. "I expected as much. Brian must have caused a commotion." Turning on her smartphone, the screen was quickly filled with notifications. Over 40 missed calls. Nearly 100 messages. Most were from her mother Hillary and her brother Brian, with a few from Douglas. "Ashley, do you think this is acceptable? You've made us a laughingstock in the lobby of a luxury hotel, and I'll never forget it. How dare you treat us this way? What about tonight?" The last message was from her mother. "We need to talk about money. Call me immediately." Ashley sighed deeply and set the smartphone down. William hugged her from behind, his warmth reassuring. "I've made up my mind," Ashley said, ready to face whatever came next, empowered and unburdened. Ashley turned to look directly into William's eyes, her resolve clear. "I'm cutting off all ties with them," she declared firmly. William nodded silently, his expression showing full support for her decision. "Are you sure about this?" he asked gently. "After all, they are your family." "No, they aren't," Ashley replied with conviction. "A real family understands and supports each other. They were just strangers obsessed with money." The two moved to the breakfast table where William had prepared croissants and scrambled eggs, a simple but heartfelt meal. This was the true happiness Ashley had been seeking. "I have a proposal for you, Ashley," William said, looking earnestly at Ashley. "Why don't we live together?" Ashley was momentarily speechless, the snow quietly falling outside the window. "Let's start a new life here, together," William suggested, his words bringing tears to Ashley's eyes, tears of joy from being freed from the false burdens of family and finding a new, true one. "Yes," Ashley smiled. "That sounds wonderful, William." Just then, her smartphone began to ring again. The screen displayed Mom. But Ashley no longer hesitated. She picked up the phone and completely blocked her mother's number, followed by Brian and Douglas. "I've taken a new step," Ashley said with a clear and bright expression. William responded with a warm smile. In mid-January, not long after the new year, Manhattan was hit by a severe cold wave. From the window of Ashley's office, the cityscape seemed to shiver in the icy north wind. "Mizu Holmes, there's a visitor for you in the lobby," her secretary's voice came through the intercom. "Mrs. Hillary Brown is here." Ashley's hands paused above the keyboard. Hillary Brown. It was the first time she'd heard her mother's name since that Christmas Eve. "Understood. I'll be right there," Ashley replied, her voice trembling slightly. In the high-rise building's first-floor lobby, Ashley's high heels echoed on the marble floor as she prepared herself for the reunion with her mother. Her mother was sitting on the visitor's sofa, not in her usual flashy attire, but in a simple gray coat, her makeup subdued, clearly showing signs of fatigue. "May I come in?" Her mother's voice lacked its former arrogance. Ashley nodded silently and led her mother to the elevator. Once they arrived at the office, Ashley gestured for her mother to sit on the sofa in the reception area. Outside, light snow began to dance in the air. "I came here because I needed to talk," her mother started quietly, sitting across from Ashley with a cup of coffee between them. "We've reached our limit." It was exactly as Ashley had expected. Her father's inheritance was nearly depleted after years of extravagant living. Her stepfather's real estate investments had failed, and they were now burdened with debt. Brian was struggling to pay for his new car and was behind on rent. "We need help." Her mother's voice shook. "Mom, is this about money?" Ashley asked, her tone calm. "Yes," her mother continued hesitantly. "For the monthly living expenses, Brian's car loan, and—" "Mom, that's enough." Ashley cut her off. "Mom, I'm no longer the family bank. I've chosen to live my own life." Her mother's expression clouded over, a stark contrast to the clear resolve in Ashley's eyes. "But we're family." "What does real family mean, anyway?" Ashley asked quietly. "During Christmas, you all treated me like a chauffeur. You said nothing when Brian gave me that spiteful smile. Is that family?" A heavy silence filled the room. "Listen, Ashley," her mother Hilary said tearfully. "I truly regret what happened that day. But right now, I'm really in trouble. I need your help." Ashley slowly stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the view. The building that her father once managed could be seen in the distance. "Mom, go home," Ashley said without turning around. "And don't come back again. My life is mine, Ashley." "Goodbye, Mom." Her mother seemed to want to say more but ultimately stood up in silence. The sound of the door closing echoed in the room. Ashley sighed deeply as she returned to her desk and touched her father's keepsake necklace. Strangely, something heavy inside her chest felt a bit lighter. The arrival of spring had transformed the Manhattan scenery. From the window of William's penthouse, the park was alive with blossoms in full bloom. Ashley held her morning coffee and gazed at the scene. "Ashley, what are you thinking about?" William asked gently from behind her. "Just a lot of things," Ashley replied, turning to smile. "In these 3 months, my life has changed so much." Indeed, the changes were significant. She had announced her engagement to William, and she had been promoted to head of her department at the investment bank. As the leader of a new project team, her talents were fully recognized. There had been no contact from her mother, and Brian's flashy social media posts had disappeared. Later, she heard from a colleague that they had moved from a luxury apartment to a modest one, now living a simpler life. "Any regrets?" William asked as he stood beside her, looking at the cherry blossoms. "None at all. This is the path I've chosen," Ashley replied, touching her father's keepsake necklace. "True family isn't necessarily about blood relations," Ashley thought to herself. "It's about understanding and supporting each other." At dusk, in a fancy restaurant where she had met William, he had important news. "We're going to expand with a new hotel chain on the West Coast," William said happily. "And I want you involved as an investment advisor." Ashley nodded immediately. Work and private life, everything was coming into perfect balance. She had a feeling. "A new beginning for our lives." Ashley raised her glass. "Yes, our lives." William smiled, clinking his glass with hers. The chime sounded like the beginning of a new chapter. "Delia, could you possibly hand over your house to this girl?" "Eh?" "I intend to pay the rent properly. How about $50 a month as a sisterly discount? This house is too big for 2 people. It would be better for the house if you gave it to your sister who is planning to have a lot of children. I am Delia, 35 years old. I have a 3-year-old daughter. I have no other family except my daughter. However, I have no regrets. Now, I rather think it was for the best. I graduated from high school and took a job in caregiving. I had a husband whom I truly loved 3 years ago. I started dating Hank after a high school reunion, and we married about a year later. In high school, I secretly harbored feelings for Hank. At the reunion, when this was revealed, I was so embarrassed I wanted to crawl into a hole, but when I got home, Hank contacted me. "Did you really like me?" he asked, and impulsively, I answered, "Yes." "What about now?" he asked, and I replied, "I still do," which started our relationship. About a year later, we married, and the following year, we had a lovely daughter named Nora. Nora looks just like her father and is absolutely adorable. Her quietly sleeping form looked just like an angel. While continuing my job, I worked together with my husband to raise our child. Chasing after work and childcare, just as our daughter was about to turn 1, my husband suddenly disappeared. When I came home that day, the room was pitch dark and I could hear my daughter crying in the back. In the living room, there was a divorce paper signed by my husband and a lawyer's business card on the table. There had been absolutely no signs of my husband planning to leave. If he had fallen out of love with me, I might have understood. But leaving our daughter alone at home was unimaginable to me. At least he should have taken her to his parents' place or left her with someone. She kept crying and her voice was trembling. When I quickly made and gave her milk, she drank it with surprising ferocity. She must have been very hungry. Her diaper was in a terrible state, and I changed it immediately. I wonder how long she had been left alone. After that, there was no contact from my husband, and through the lawyer whose business card he had left, the proceedings moved forward and we officially divorced. All that was left to me was this small house I had bought before our marriage and my beloved daughter, and a meager amount of child support left by my ex-husband. His parents were furious at him for disappearing so suddenly. I'm truly sorry to leave Delia and Nora like that. He didn't even contact us. I have no idea what he was thinking. I'll never forgive him. Then they said this to me. You're divorced, and you might not want to have anything to do with us anymore, but if there's ever a time when there's no one to look after Nora, feel free to contact us. Work must be hard on you. It must be tough doing this alone. We're here if you need us, as long as it's not a bother to you, Delia. At first I hesitated, but realistically, it was a very helpful offer. I couldn't rely on my own parents due to various issues. So I decided to accept my in-laws' offer. Later, I found what I believe was my ex-husband's social media account and learned that he had been having an affair. The other woman had continued to actively pursue him even after he married me, and it seems she eventually succeeded in taking him away from me. On social media, there were many laments from my ex-husband like raising children is tough. Taking care of a baby makes me feel old. My daughter doesn't get attached to me. I want to escape this life. I can't take it anymore. The woman he had an affair with seems to be a university graduate and a company employee, and my ex-husband emphasized this point on social media, saying she was the opposite of his high school graduate, caregiver wife. Seeing that, anger welled up inside me. I looked into whether I could legally claim alimony, but since I had already received a small amount of property division due to the child support and sudden divorce, it seemed difficult to claim more. I decided not to think about money anymore. Now I just needed to focus solely on raising my daughter. I had no room to spare thoughts for my ex-husband. I set aside my pride, left my daughter with my in-laws during the day, and devoted myself fully to childcare after returning from work. Fortunately, my daughter has grown up smoothly without any major illnesses or injuries. That was the greatest happiness. At work, they considered my situation, and even in the midst of a severe staff shortage, they flexibly adjusted the shifts when my daughter was ill. Additionally, I received a lot of advice and help from colleagues who had experience with childcare. I am truly grateful for all the support I continue to receive in various ways. My daughter loved her grandparents very much, and sometimes she would turn away pouting when I came to pick her up. On the other hand, when I tried to go to work in the morning, she would resist being held by her grandmother and cried for me, which was confusing but also pleased me. Now that my daughter has turned 2 and started attending nursery school, we rely less on my in-laws. It's a bit sad that she's going to nursery school now, said my mother-in-law. Although my mother-in-law felt lonely not seeing her as often, I think it's not good to rely on my in-laws forever. At the nursery, there were surprisingly many single mothers like me raising children. Having similar circumstances made conversations lively, and talking with each other often refreshed our mood. As we continued these daily routines, my daughter's third birthday arrived. I gave her her beloved chocolate cake and the makeup set she had been looking forward to, and we spent her birthday together. I think it was about 3 days later. Exhausted from a night shift, I had dropped my daughter off at nursery and was soundly asleep on the sofa when suddenly the doorbell rang. I usually ignored the doorbell, unless I was expecting a delivery or had prior notice, as dealing with unexpected matters had become increasingly troublesome. However, that day the ringing persisted, prompting me to get up and check the monitor, where I saw my parents and sister, whom I hadn't been in contact with for a long time. Pressing the button in surprise, my mother immediately began to speak. "Delia, it's Mom. Are you doing well? We've come because there's something we need to talk about. Your sister is getting married." My mother spoke with a joyful expression, then urged my sister to speak. My sister was neatly dressed. "Hey sis, it's been a while. We came to see your house today." "What's the rush?" "So it's hot outside, can we come in? I also want to give you the wedding invitation." Reluctantly, I opened the door. Immediately, my parents brushed past me, commenting it's quite spacious, isn't it, as they made themselves at home inside. I couldn't grasp what was happening and tried desperately to stop them, but they paid no heed to my protests. There are 2 bedrooms, so it seems we could even fit a large bed. There's even a storage room. The kitchen pantry is included, and it looks like there's enough storage. As they continued to inspect each room, I became more agitated. "But weren't you supposed to just deliver an invitation? What are you doing looking around the house as you please? We're family. What's there to be troubled about?" The ease with which they mentioned family left me momentarily speechless. There was no bond that could truly be called familial between me and those 3. "Now that we've seen inside, what do you think?" "Yeah, it was your house, Delia, but I think it passes muster. He'll surely agree if it's this house. Just make sure to clean every nook and cranny before moving in." Then it's settled. Seeing me stunned, my mother turned back and said, "Delia, could you possibly hand over your house to your sister?" "What?" "I intend to pay the rent properly. How about $50 a month as a sisterly discount?" Here's what my mother was thinking. My sister wanted to start a new life in her own home with the person she loved as they got married. However, she had no savings and couldn't afford to build a new home. That's why they came to me. It seems my parents had secretly investigated and knew that I had just bought the house and was divorced, raising my daughter alone. "This house is too big for just 2 people. It would be better for the house if you gave it to a sister who is planning to have many children." "It's not about that. Isn't it hard for you too, living in this house full of memories with your ex-husband? I'll take over and live here instead for your sake. I'll pay rent, so it's good, right?" She said this so nonchalantly. The reason I distanced myself from my family was that I left home after graduating high school and getting a job. All 3 of them never thought of me as family. From my childhood through my student years, I was treated like I was invisible. The reason was clear. It was because my mother remarried. My current father was my stepfather, and there was a 7-year age gap between my sister and me. We have different fathers. When I was little, my father and mother were always arguing fiercely. I wanted them to get along, and I tried to mediate their fights, but one night, in a rage, my father threw my mother and me out of the house. My mother took me with her to her parents' house, and we lived there for about 2 to 3 years. As soon as my parents' divorce was finalized, my mother said, "I want to introduce you to David, a man who has been helpful to me at work. That man is now my father." The wedding ceremony was conducted with just the 2 of them. No relatives were invited, and I didn't even attend the ceremony. On that day, I was studying at home. When my mother registered the marriage, she was already pregnant. Soon after, my sister was born. However, even before my sister's birth, I was treated as if I didn't exist in the house. Initially, my stepfather made an effort to engage in conversation, but gradually he lost interest in me. Even when I spoke to him, his responses were cold, and he would not even look at my face. My mother's behavior was terrible too. After she started living with my stepfather, she never met my eyes. Even when I was in the living room, they acted as if I wasn't there, talking only with each other. When they took a bath, they would close the hot water even though I hadn't bathed it. Initially, I thought they just wanted to enjoy their newlywed life, but that was not the case. Once my sister was born, both my father and mother prioritized her above everything else. I thought it was inevitable while my sister was a baby, but the situation remained the same as she grew up. One day, looking in the mirror, I realized something. My face closely resembled my father's. The resemblance had probably been strong since I was young. I think my mother felt annoyed by me after remarrying, as I reminded her of her ex-husband. It was the moment I realized why I was treated as non-existent in our home. My sister seemed to have a faint awareness of our situation. Perhaps that's why, when we were young, she used to share the snacks she received with me, giving me half. From the brand new set of pencils given only to my sister, she gave me one and often expressed sympathy for me, saying, "I feel sorry for you, sister," and took care of me in various ways. I was comforted by such kindness from my sister. I resolved to always cherish her. However, as she entered middle school, our relationship began to change. Whenever our parents bought her something new, she would immediately boast about it to me. "I got this too. They only buy stuff for me, not for you, huh? Do you want this? I already got one before, so I can give it to you." The way she looked down on me, as if a wealthy person pitying a poor one, was evident in her expressions and words. Initially, I thought it was my own jealousy shaping her words, but as it happened repeatedly, I realized that wasn't the case. She was mocking me, feeling superior. The moment I realized that, the only support I had in my family was gone. No matter how much I wanted to avoid her, she would come to my room on her own, using our parents' love as a shield to brag. My parents continued to ignore me. When we joined club activities in school, I was often left without a meal, or the food just sat on the table all cold. At least it was in the fridge. Enduring such situations every day nearly broke my spirit. Feeling that I couldn't go on like this, I firmly decided, I'll leave this house once I graduate from high school, and that determination helped me get through my student life. In today's world, even a high school graduate can make it. I initially didn't choose caregiving as a job I particularly wanted. However, as I worked, I began to find fulfillment in it. Being less fortunate with family, the job was challenging but became a source of emotional support, and my colleagues, both seniors and juniors, were all kind and dependable. Due to these circumstances, I had kept my distance from my family for a long time. Yet suddenly they looked me up, came to my house without permission, rummaged through it, and made an unreasonable demand like handing over the house for $50 rent, which made me question their common sense. I couldn't stand my sister's irrational attitude, thinking my belongings were hers. It's a house full of memories with my ex-husband, but it's a precious home that I worked hard to buy with the money I saved. It might be too big for two, but we like it here, so I have no intention of giving it to my sister. You should build your own house with your own money. Are you struggling that much financially? Just because you only graduated high school, you act all high and mighty. I'm a public servant, so I have more money than you. I'm just saying this house is too good for you, so you should leave. Isn't it said that caregivers don't earn much considering the work they do? Wouldn't you appreciate the rental income? Being a single parent, you must need the money, right? Don't talk to me about rental income of $50 a month. That's nowhere near enough to cover the mortgage repayments. Hey, you still have a mortgage. You should be the one to pay it off to the end. That's right, you bought it, so you should take responsibility until the end. Enough. I'm not giving this house to anyone, so leave. I don't even plan to attend the wedding. You've always been an unattractive child. I don't take it out on me just because I look so much like Dad. I don't even think of you as my mother. Carried away by emotion, I said this, and my mother, furious, shouted back with 3 times the intensity. I managed to drive my mother out of the house, and my father and sister hurriedly followed her out. I watched them leave and slammed the door shut. Don't come here anymore. Leave me alone. I couldn't leave the spot until I saw them disappear. The harsh words showered on me by my family, whom I had not seen in a long time, brought back painful memories I had almost forgotten, stirring turmoil in my chest and making me feel nauseous. However, I couldn't afford to take time off work, so I went to my job despite being sleep-deprived. Finally, when my day off arrived, the turmoil in my heart had not subsided. So, I left my daughter with my in-laws and hopped on a train alone to a certain destination. I went to a church famous for warding off evil. It was a church renowned nationwide, a bit far from home, but I went there desperately seeking a blessing to ward off evil. And I received a prayer for protection at the church. Although my daughter was grumpy for being taken to her grandparents' house on her day off, when I explained, I went to ask God to prevent any misfortune from befalling our home, her expression became intrigued. What's misfortune? It means unexpected bad events. I asked for protection to keep our home safe from such things. I want to pray to God too. Saying this, my daughter sat on the sofa and began to pray softly. The following week, as usual, I picked up my daughter from nursery and did some shopping on our way home. The moment I opened the front door of our house, I felt the presence of someone inside. I quickly moved my daughter away from the house, telling her, "Wait here," and then I went back inside alone, grabbing an umbrella from the entrance. I heard some noises coming from the living room. Thinking it must be a burglar, I steeled myself, opened the living room door, and screamed. Aha! I didn't even know what I was yelling, but I frantically swung the umbrella around, raising my voice. Yeah? Startled by my charging in with the umbrella, the person who fell backwards was not a burglar, but my sister. Why you're here? That's my line. You scared me. I'm the one who's shocked. What are you doing here? Upon closer inspection, I noticed the living room window was broken. My sister had entered the house through that window. Moreover, she was rummaging through the cupboard. I frantically grabbed my smartphone. Wait, who are you calling? The police. There's a burglar in the house. I'm not a burglar. If you're not a burglar, then what do you call breaking into a house through a window? As if saying she wouldn't let that happen, my sister charged at me, trying to snatch away my smartphone. Stay away. Give me the phone. Stop it, you thief. I told you I'm not a thief. You are definitely a burglar. My sister and I were shouting nonsensical things at each other as we grappled. That's when it happened. There's a thief. A thief. There's a bad person here. My daughter's voice could be heard from outside. Worried, she had come home and quietly opened the front door, probably hearing the word thief. Thief, thief, somebody help. My daughter was running around the neighborhood, screaming loudly. That sneaky little. When my sister tried to head outside towards my daughter, I grabbed her and desperately tried to prevent her from going outside. At that moment, our neighbor, Mr. Watson, and Mr. Allen from across the street came rushing into the house wielding a baseball bat and a golf club, shouting loudly. Old Mr. Carter, who lives nearby and whose hobby is gardening, also entered through the living room window holding large shovels in both hands. While I was tending to the garden flowers, I was truly grateful that I had greeted him before. I felt proud of myself for having established a conversational relationship with Mr. Watson and Mr. Allen. Building relationships with neighbors really is beneficial. In such a situation, I was slightly moved and almost teared up. Perhaps realizing that her situation was hopeless, my sister stopped resisting and collapsed on the spot. Seeing this, the neighbors firmly restrained her. Worried about my daughter, I hurried outside, and Mrs. Watson was there embracing her. The moment I saw my daughter's face and felt relieved, I heard the sound of a police siren. My sister was handed over to the police by the neighbors and was being questioned in the police car. I repeatedly expressed my gratitude to the neighbors and hugged my daughter tightly. "So it's all thanks to you, Nora." When someone said that, Nora shouted, "Begone, evil spirit." I wondered where she had learned such a phrase. Nora then began mimicking a pastor's gestures. This caused all the neighbors to start laughing, and the tumultuous atmosphere calmed down a bit. Shortly after, my pale-faced parents arrived. They must have been contacted by the police. Tears streaming down her face, my mother apologized and said, "Delia, just listen. Please help her pay off her debts." "Hey, what debts?" "She messed up with stocks." Stocks. At that moment, everything that had happened clicked in my mind. Including what I found out later, it appears that my sister got involved in stocks because her income was insufficient. The reason was her boyfriend. She wanted to impress him with gifts and meals, but her salary made that difficult. At that time, my sister saw a dubious advertisement claiming easy money could be made from stocks. She bought the product and began trading with enthusiasm, but the result was a loss. Still, she had already boasted to her boyfriend that she would build a new house for their married life, and when she became desperate, she came to me asking for my house. After I turned her away, she continued trading stocks, saying next time it'll be fine, and ended up accumulating a huge debt which her parents eventually found out about. Ultimately, that led her to try to steal money from my house. Perhaps because I had always been an easy target to dominate since we were young, my sister may have become quite stubborn. "You don't care about me, just give me the money without saying anything. I needed to pay off my debts," she yelled. Breaking into a house and stealing money just because we're family is still a crime. And whatever the circumstances, I have no money to give you. "How dare you say that? I don't want to hear it from someone whose husband left her. I will be loved by my husband and have a happy family surrounded by children. You commit a crime and still say such things? What? Both of you stop it now. Delia, don't be so harsh. She's your sister after all. Give her a little help." "This person is not my sister. I'll let you mom and dad help her if you want. To me, she's nothing, she's not family." "Don't come near me, you thief. Begone, evil spirit." My daughter, standing behind me, started mimicking an exorcism again. My parents, who were red-faced, approached my daughter but were stopped by the police, and all three were taken to the police station. I hadn't been concerned about what happened to my sister after that, but my mother came to my house a while after and said, "Please help Delia. I apologize for everything," while asking for money. "Even if you apologize, I can't forgive you. We are strangers now, so don't come to me for help. If you don't leave, I'll call the police again." With that, I turned my mother away. According to my mother, my sister's boyfriend found out about the burglary and her stock-related debts and ran off. The rumors even spread to her workplace, and she was forced to resign. Since then, the three of them have disappeared. Curious and wanting to avoid being seen, I passed by my parents' house and saw it was up for sale. According to the neighborhood gossip, they may have fled in the night. I wonder if it was the blessing from the church, known for warding off evil, or was it the effect of my daughter's exorcism? The disappearance of the three of them so suddenly did feel a bit eerie, but perhaps it was fate, given the already frail ties of our family. Afterwards, my daughter became completely engrossed in playing a pastor, often mimicking exorcisms even at nursery school. Next time there's a chance, I would like to capture that in a photo. In the top-floor boardroom of Harrison Industries' Manhattan skyscraper, enveloped by the October twilight, Isabella Harrison stood by a large window, finalizing her documents while gazing at the distant skyline. For the past 3 years, she had dedicated herself to proving her worth at this company. After earning her MBA, leading numerous projects to success, and most importantly, striving to gain her father's trust. Around 4 p.m., the boardroom door began to open. Her father, Anthony Harrison, her uncle Daniel and his wife Kathy, and her cousin Joseph entered. Joseph's face bore his usual confident smile. "Everyone, please take a seat." Her father's voice lacked its usual authoritative tone. Isabella, feeling a sense of unease, took her seat. Across the table, Joseph casually flaunted his expensive watch. "Today I have a significant announcement regarding the future of the company. I have decided to transfer management of the company to Joseph." Those words struck Isabella like arrows of ice. This decision has already been approved by the board of directors. Starting next month, Joseph will be the CEO. Wait a second. Isabella's voice echoed in the quiet boardroom. "Dad, this is not what we discussed." Joseph cleared his throat lightly. "Isabella, business sometimes. I'm not talking to you." Isabella glared sharply at Joseph, feeling her usual composure slip away. "Dad, you promised me. After I got my MBA, you said you'd give me a chance." "Isabella." This time, Aunt Kathy spoke up, thinking about the future of the family. "Family? I've worked late every day for the past 3 years, sacrificed my weekends, all for this company. What has Joseph done? He only joined the company recently." A heavy silence dominated the room. "Isabella, I fully recognize your contributions," her father said quietly. "That's why, in the HR department." "That's enough." Isabella stood up. "I've had enough." She stuffed her documents into her bag. As she headed for the door, Isabella turned back towards her father. "Dad, I'm disappointed in you, but even more in myself. I trusted you too much." With those final words, Isabella left the boardroom, focusing solely on getting away. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, she caught her father's puzzled expression. She heard someone call her name from behind, but she didn't turn back. Clutching her leather bag tightly, she stepped out into the chilly October air. The streets were gradually filling with people finishing work. Isabella walked mechanically, replaying her last conversation with her father over and over in her head. "Why?" she murmured softly. As she stopped at a traffic light, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Messages from her best friend, Christina, lined the screen. "Are you okay? I've been worried since I can't reach you." "Where are you?" "Isabella, please reply." Isabella typed a brief reply. "Central Park. On a bench." 15 minutes later, Christina sat down beside her, holding 2 takeaway coffees. "How did the meeting go?" Christina asked, her tone suggesting she already knew the answer. "It's over," Isabella said in a hollow voice. "Everything." "What do you mean?" "Dad decided to hand over the company to Joseph." Christina exclaimed in surprise. "What? But Isabella, you've been working towards that for..." "Yes, 3 years. The MBA, working late nights, sacrificing weekends for projects. It was all for nothing. But that's not right. Your dad has always trusted me." Isabella grimaced with a wry smile. "I thought so too, but the look in Dad's eyes today..." The emotion in his eyes was more than just regret. There seemed to be a deep sense of guilt lurking there. "So, what will you do now?" "I don't know, but I can't stay here." That night, Isabella began packing her belongings in her apartment. Documents, photographs, keepsakes, everything seemed different now. Especially the family photo on the living room shelf caught her attention. In the photo, her father and Joseph's expressions bore a striking resemblance. Isabella picked up the photo and stared at it intently. The phone rang. It was from her father. Isabella ignored the call and tossed the photo into a box. However, deep down, she began to faintly sense that this was more than just a management issue. "Are you really okay?" It was the second week's morning in Christina's guest room. The morning sun shone through the window, illuminating the unopened boxes. "Yeah, somehow." Isabella tried to smile, but it didn't come out right. "Christina, don't you find it odd?" "What?" "Everything. Dad has always been about meritocracy. Ever since I was little, he taught me that. Success depends on effort. Yet, Joseph has no achievements. Not just that. The timing of Dad's decision is odd too. Just as I got my MBA and started being entrusted with important projects." Christina put toast on a plate and said, "Family matters can be complicated sometimes, right?" "Yes, family matters. There must be more to why Dad wanted to pass on the company than just business judgment." Suddenly, Isabella said, "I need to go back home to pick up some stuff I left." "What now? Are you planning to see your dad?" "No, he should be at work on weekday afternoons." An hour later, Isabella stood in front of her family home. She unlocked the door and quietly entered. The housekeeper, Michelle, only comes on Thursdays. It was supposed to be empty today. On her way to her old room upstairs, she stopped. The study door was slightly open. Normally, Dad always locks it. Hesitating, Isabella entered. The large bookshelf was lined with old albums. As a child, looking at these albums was only for special occasions. She picked up the oldest album and began flipping through the pages. Her parents' wedding, Isabella's birth, her early childhood photos, and then the pages where Joseph began to appear. Isabella quickly flipped back through the pages. Joseph started appearing in family photos when he was about 5 years old. There were no photos of him before that. Isabella. Turning around, there stood Rebecca. She had been working at the company for over 30 years as a secretary. She had been contributing to the company even before her father became president. "Rebecca, why are you here?" "I came to sort some documents. I have the keys to the study." Her eyes were fixed on the album Isabella was holding. They stared at each other in silence for a long time. Then, Rebecca sighed deeply. "Your grandfather always said this day would come." Rebecca slowly entered the room and closed the door. "Mr. Frank Harrison, your grandfather left some instructions before he passed away." Rebecca handed Isabella an old envelope. "This was left for you by your grandfather for when you're ready to learn the truth." The envelope was labeled, "For Isabella, when you are ready to know the truth," in her grandfather's distinctive handwriting. Inside was a note and another envelope. The note was succinctly written, "Dear Isabella, if you are reading this, it means you have begun to seek the truth. Deliver the next envelope to my old friend and family lawyer, Robert Morris. He will explain everything. With love, grandfather." Robert Morris. Isn't he the company's advisory lawyer? No. Mr. Morris was your grandfather's personal lawyer, unrelated to the company. Isabella pulled out her smartphone and searched for Morris's law firm. The office was located on the Upper East Side. "Take care, but make me one promise. Do not discuss this matter with anyone yet." Isabella nodded silently in agreement. During the taxi ride, she thought of her grandfather. He was a calm and wise man, always concerned about the future of his family. Morris's law firm was located on the 5th floor of an old building. Upon opening the heavy wooden door, Isabella was greeted by the office's classical ambience. "I am Isabella Harrison. I would like to meet with Mr. Robert Morris. I'm sorry, but today's appointments are." "I was referred by my grandfather, Frank Harrison." The receptionist's expression changed upon hearing this. "Please wait a moment." A few minutes later, a gentleman with white hair appeared. "Isabella? Is it really you?" Robert Morris looked much older than Isabella remembered, but his eyes still held a sharp glint. Frank told me you might come someday. He led Isabella into an inner office. This is from my grandfather. Isabella handed him an envelope. Robert carefully opened it, and after inspecting the contents, he let out a deep sigh. "Please have a seat, Isabella," he said in a calm voice. "This is going to be a long conversation." He retrieved an old file from the bookshelf labeled Harrison Family. Personal Records 1995 to 1996. "There's something you need to know about your father and Joseph. Their relationship." Isabella gasped, intuitively sensing that what she was about to hear would forever change her life. "Your father was a law student in 1995 and was dating a woman named Kathy Thompson." Kathy, my aunt. He pulled out a photograph. It showed a young Kathy. She was a student at the same university, in the School of Education. Isabella gasped again. That spring, Kathy became pregnant. However, their relationship had already ended by then. So, Kathy decided to raise the child alone. Your father was already dating your current mother at that time. A heavy silence fell over the office. That child was Joseph. Robert nodded quietly. Thus, Isabella and Joseph were half-siblings, a fact that their father had kept hidden from Isabella. 2 years later, Kathy met Daniel Harrison. He promised to raise Joseph as his own son. But why now? Your grandfather, Frank, knew everything. Robert opened another file. He was concerned that this secret would surface someday, especially when the issue of company succession arose. That's why grandfather left the letter with Rebecca. Yes. Robert stood up and retrieved a new document from the safe. This is the deed to a trust fund your grandfather established in case you lost control of the company. Isabella took the document. While conditional, this can be used as capital to start a new business. Frank believed in your talent. But why didn't grandfather tell my father everything? He respected each person's choices. Your father's, Kathy's, and Daniel's. Does my mother know? No, only a very few involved are aware of this truth. Everything seemed to connect now. Her father's sudden decision, the transfer of the company to Joseph, and the discomfort she had long felt. Her father had feigned the promise of leadership to Isabella, only to let her work for nothing in return. When the time came to decide on a president, his guilt prevailed, and he chose to make amends to Joseph, disregarding Isabella's relentless efforts. What did my grandfather want by telling me this truth? He wanted you to find your own path, not tied to the company's succession, but to pursue your own potential. As she gazed out at the Manhattan nightscape, she solidified her new resolve. Thank you, Mr. Morris. She turned back. I will fulfill my grandfather's wishes in my own way. That night, Isabella thought about her grandfather as she looked out from her apartment window. He had always been concerned about the future of his family, and now his legacy was supporting her new beginning. I will now explain our company's efforts to reduce environmental impacts in next-generation manufacturing technologies. In a boardroom on the top floor of a Wall Street skyscraper, Isabella stood before 10 investors. 1 year since its inception, her company had steadily grown. The presentation screen displayed diagrams of innovative manufacturing processes. An intriguing proposal. An elderly investor leaned forward. However, such innovative technology requires a significant initial investment. Just then, the conference room door opened. I apologize for my delay. Joseph entered with a broad smile. Isabella's heart skipped a beat. I am Joseph Harrison from Harrison Industries. He introduced himself. Actually, we have been considering a similar project. The atmosphere in the room shifted. Investors' gazes darted between Isabella and Joseph. What a coincidence. Isabella maintained her composure. However, our patented technology is all ready. Of course, our approach is a bit different, more traditional. The presentation ended as planned, but the investor's demeanor had clearly become more cautious. Isabella. One investor approached her after the meeting. Your proposal is excellent. However, competing with a major firm like Harrison Industries, their technology is different. Isabella responded firmly. And we already have a track record. Back at the office, Christina was waiting. How did it go? Joseph showed up. Isabella sank into a chair, tired. It seems his father's company is trying to enter our business model. But that means... Yes. Isabella opened her laptop. They have a critical weakness. The latest financial report of Harrison Industries was displayed on her screen. Under Joseph's management, the company's performance had rapidly deteriorated. Look, research and development expenses have been significantly cut. They shouldn't have the capacity to start new projects. And, never mind. I can't tell you yet, but rest assured, they won't be an obstacle for us. That night, on her way home, Isabella received an email from an industry magazine editor. Your information was very helpful. The article will be published tomorrow. As she looked at the screen, a cold smile formed on her lips. For the past 3 weeks, she had been meticulously preparing. Evidence of Joseph's sloppy management, traces of fraudulent accounting, and, most importantly, opaque financial transactions with Daniel. She had anonymously provided all the evidence to the industry magazine. Gathering information was extremely challenging. However, many of the long-term employees, dissatisfied with Joseph's autocratic management, were willing to help. They gradually compiled evidence together. The next morning, the article sent shockwaves through the industry. Harrison Industries. A muddled management revealed. It detailed Joseph's lack of managerial skills, sloppy accounting practices, and illegal financial operations under headlines. The article meticulously reported on several dubious transactions since his appointment, significant cuts in R&D spending, opaque foreign investments, and most notably, inappropriate transactions with a company managed by Daniel. Everything was substantiated with detailed documents and testimonies from insiders. The Securities and Exchange Commission immediately launched an investigation. The sight of investigators entering the headquarters was broadcast on national news. Joseph was forced to hold an emergency press conference. Even dressed in an expensive suit, his face was visibly fraught with anxiety. I deeply apologize for the issues raised in this report. Isabella's father, Anthony, was also present at the press conference. Gone was the image of a dignified executive. Instead, a tired old man sat, apologizing for his son's scandal. It was my mismanagement. I take full responsibility for everything. Reporters bombarded him with further questions. Why had he entrusted the management to his nephew, Joseph? What were his thoughts on the treatment of his competent biological daughter, Isabella Harrison? Anthony evaded all questions with the phrase, "This matter is currently under investigation." However, that was just the tip of the iceberg. As the Securities and Exchange Commission's investigation progressed, more severe issues came to light. Systematic embezzlement by Daniel and Joseph, fictitious transactions, and illegal transfers to overseas accounts were uncovered. Asset hiding under Kathy's name was also discovered. Harrison Industries' stock price hit the daily limit down day after day. Long-standing business partners terminated their contracts one after another, and banks began to pull their loans. The board of directors convened an emergency general meeting and resolved to dismiss Joseph as CEO. But it was already too late. The company's reputation had hit rock bottom, and shareholders were preparing for a class action lawsuit. The once glamorous headquarters building was besieged daily by the media, waiting for new scandals to emerge. Meanwhile, Isabella's new company was achieving steady growth. Her developed environmental technologies were setting new standards in the industry. Major media outlets hailed her as the standard bearer of the environmental tech revolution, and investors were eagerly injecting capital. Particularly notable was her newly developed manufacturing process. This groundbreaking technology reduced environmental impact by 70% compared to traditional methods and had already secured several patents. This technology represented a breakthrough in the very field Harrison Industries had long pursued. Isabella's success was proving to be the most effective revenge against her father and Joseph. The daughter they had underestimated and tried to sideline was now leading the forefront of the industry. This irony became a quiet topic of discussion among industry insiders. 6 months later, the day of arrest arrived. Joseph, Daniel, and Kathy were arrested on charges of securities fraud and embezzlement. Isabella's father, Anthony, was also charged as an accomplice. The image of them being led away in handcuffs from their upscale homes topped the evening news. Harrison Industries executives arrested, charged with fraudulent accounting and embezzlement. The arrests shook the industry once again. The cunning method of money laundering through Daniel's affiliated companies was particularly well reported due to its sophistication. The trial lasted over a year. During that time, Isabella never set foot in the courtroom. However, she meticulously followed every development. One shocking fact after another came to light in court. Joseph had started diverting company assets for personal use shortly after his appointment. Daniel assisted him while funneling benefits to his own company. And Anthony had known everything and turned a blind eye. In the end, Joseph received a 5-year prison sentence. Daniel got 7 years, Kathy received a 3-year sentence with probation, and Anthony was sentenced to 4 years. When the verdicts were delivered, there was no trace of their former arrogance on Anthony and Joseph's faces. 4 years later, in autumn, Isabella was reading the morning paper in her new office on the top floor of a Manhattan building. The front page featured a bold headline: "The shocking truth of the Harrison family. Former CEO Joseph Harrison's secret birth revealed." The article detailed how Joseph was actually the biological child of Anthony and Kathy, raised secretly as Daniel's adoptive child. DNA test results were published, leaving no room for doubt. Just as expected, Isabella quietly closed the newspaper. In fact, she had been pulling the strings behind this report. Old documents found during the securities fraud investigation, information from Rebecca, and the cooperation of Robert Morris. She had strategically leaked all the evidence to the media. "Are you really okay with this?" Christina asked, now the CEO of the company and visibly concerned. "Yes." Isabella looked out the window. "This ends all the lies." That afternoon, she received a call from her father. It had been 2 weeks since his release from prison. This report must have been the final blow for him. "I want to meet." His voice was hoarse. As she entered the restaurant, she immediately spotted her father. The once dignified executive was gone, replaced by just a tired old man sitting by the window, waiting for her. "All of this was your doing, wasn't it?" There was no anger in her father's voice. Only a deep weariness could be felt. There was a need to reveal the truth. Isabella quietly replied, "To ensure that no one else would be hurt." "Joseph. He saw this article in prison." "I know. But he had the right to know, too." Her father was silent for a long time. "I made all the wrong choices." His voice trembled faintly. "When I left Kathy and found out about Joseph, I ran away from everything. And that regret influenced how I treated you. That's why you let me make futile efforts, only to hand the company over to Joseph." "That's right. And as a result, we lost everything." Isabella looked at her father's aged face. The intense anger she once felt was no longer there. "I have found a new life," she said quietly. "Just as grandfather wanted. Frank. My father saw through my foolishness until the end." "No." Isabella shook her head. "Grandfather just wanted to give all of us a chance to face the truth." As they left the restaurant, the evening sky was beautiful. A week after the reports, Joseph's wife filed for divorce. There were rumors that Kathy had fled the country, and Daniel tearfully apologized in front of reporters at a press conference. It was all a tragedy spawned by years of lies. Back in the office, Isabella's desk was piled with plans for a new project: next-generation development in environmental technology. This was truly what she had wanted to pursue. Outside the window, the evening sky slowly enveloped in the cloak of night. The former headquarters building of Harrison Industries was now occupied by another company. However, Isabella's new company continued to grow steadily. It was not just a story of revenge, but a journey in pursuit of truth, exactly as her grandfather had wanted. I am Vanessa, a 30-year-old. I have loved drawing since I was a child. Situated in a tranquil corner of a quaint town, I would often be found with a sketchbook in hand, meticulously capturing the landscapes and facial expressions of people around me. During my university years, I chose to specialize in fine arts, and upon graduating, actively sought opportunities to showcase my work. Despite my efforts, the journey to earn a living as a professional painter proved to be challenging. My life experienced a significant and positive shift when I encountered Jonathan. We met soon after I graduated. Jonathan was employed on a construction site at the time. His robust, tanned physique, coated in sweat as he transported lumber, seemed to belong to a cinematic scene. "Need a hand?" he asked, flashing a warm, inviting smile that immediately captured my heart. Jonathan was not only a skilled carpenter but also the owner of his construction company. He had a fervent passion for his craft and a dedication to creating safe, secure homes for families, often stating with pride, "Creating safe places for people to reside is my profession." This dedication resonated deeply with me, and as we spent more time together, my affection for him deepened. He also showed appreciation for my artistic endeavors, often supporting me by saying, "Your paintings possess the remarkable ability to touch people's hearts." After years of a loving relationship, we decided to get married. Supported by Jonathan's unwavering encouragement, I embarked on fulfilling my aspiration to become a self-reliant painter. This led me to make the bold decision to leave my job and commit myself full-time to my art, despite the inherent anxieties that came with such a significant change. The initial phase of my new career was marked by numerous challenges. I made rounds to various galleries attempting to sell my art and consistently promoted my work online, but success seemed slow to arrive. During these challenging times, Jonathan and my closest friend from university, Tiffany, stood by me as crucial pillars of support. Tiffany, who had built a career in marketing, held my work in high regard and provided invaluable advice, suggesting, "You should focus on building a stronger brand image for greater recognition." Her strategic guidance on effective social media promotion slowly began to draw more attention to my art. This increased visibility eventually led to a life-changing opportunity when a distinguished art collector, impressed by my work, offered me the chance to hold a solo exhibition. His endorsement helped secure a spot for me in a top-tier gallery, which significantly boosted my presence in the art world. As my professional career began to take off, not everyone seemed pleased with my success, especially my sister Samantha. Samantha had always exhibited a competitive streak, comparing everything from academic achievements to hobbies and even our circle of friends throughout our childhood. As a result, as adults, Samantha pursued a different kind of success after college. She married William, a doctor, and enjoyed a comfortable life as a housewife, equating success with financial stability and a luxurious lifestyle. It seems likely that my emerging success did not sit well with her. Initially, her comments were subtly disparaging. "Do painters really make that much money? Well, at least you have Jonathan to support you. Aren't art trends rather fleeting? What will you do if people suddenly lose interest in your work?" Initially, I took these comments lightly, but over time, Samantha's true feelings became increasingly apparent as her behavior shifted towards more direct expressions of disdain. Then, an extraordinary and completely unexpected incident unfolded. While I was involved in the preparations for my upcoming exhibition, a perplexing and sudden phone call came through from the gallery. Is there a need to revisit the contract? The instant I received that call, I found myself completely dumbstruck, at a total loss for words. The person representing the gallery spoke in vague terms, hinting at potential problems by saying, "We've been informed that there could be some issues concerning your artwork." This left me bewildered, and I urgently requested further clarification. Issues? Yes, there has been a mention by one of the collectors that your works might be subject to plagiarism. Plagiarism? This accusation was entirely unprecedented for me, as my artistic integrity had always ensured that I created solely original pieces. Who would make such an accusation? Well, that's a bit complicated, the representative replied, avoiding a direct answer. Driven by this puzzling accusation, I decided to conduct my own investigation into these bizarre claims. It was then that I uncovered the unsettling truth that Samantha had been covertly orchestrating this scenario. She had been deceitfully contacting my clientele, spreading false accusations, suggesting that my artworks might be plagiarized. I felt a wave of anger coursing through me. Nevertheless, I made the conscious decision to momentarily set aside my fury and respond with a level-headed approach to safeguard my professional relationship with the gallery. That evening, I disclosed every detail with Jonathan. He listened intently and then posed a significant question. "What's your plan?" The idea of my career being tarnished by Samantha's falsehoods is unbearable. "I am innocent." Jonathan showed his support with a nod and said, "I'll assist as well. Recently, I completed a significant project for a client who has a keen interest in art. I will introduce your work to him." This suggestion caught me off guard. It appeared that Jonathan could potentially leverage his extensive network as the president of his company to secure new clients for my artwork. I also sought advice from my closest confidante, Tiffany. Samantha was behind this, wasn't she? "That's terrible," she remarked, barely concealing her frustration. "But don't fret. I'll utilize my influence on social media to authenticate the originality of your artworks." Tiffany is a seasoned marketing expert. She promptly crafted posts that affirmed the originality of my creations and arranged for these to be disseminated through her professional contacts within the art industry. Shortly thereafter, a new client, introduced by Jonathan, expressed a profound appreciation for my work. "Your art is exceptional. It radiates a level of creativity I've seldom encountered." Hearing such affirmations, I was moved to the point of tears. Thanks to Tiffany, my artwork began receiving broader recognition and support on social media platforms, substantially boosting my professional reputation. Remarkably, even the gallery that had initially harbored doubts about my work conceded their mistake and opted to renew our contract, admitting, upon closer examination, "We found absolutely no issues with your artwork." I had successfully navigated through Samantha's underhanded sabotage and emerged with even greater support than before. Time passed, and a family gathering was on the horizon. I chose to attend with minimal fanfare, yet Samantha appeared visibly uncomfortable. "Vanessa, it seems you've been quite occupied lately." "Indeed. Thankfully, I have managed to secure several additional contracts, and the exhibition is proceeding exactly as planned." Samantha's expression momentarily tightened, a clear indication that she realized her attempts to undermine me had not succeeded. "Good for you," she finally managed to muster, though her smile failed to reach her eyes, revealing her true feelings. Yet the situation was far from resolved. In a desperate attempt to present a facade of success, Samantha decided to boast. "Listen, everyone," she called out with forced excitement. "William has just been promoted to partner at the hospital. This will certainly ensure even greater stability for our family life." Her announcement was met with immediate applause and congratulatory remarks from the family. A stable career is truly invaluable. I personally could never cope with a profession where the future is always uncertain. Samantha added, trying to contrast her supposed stability with the unpredictability of artistic careers. Although her comments were meant to provoke me, I chose to maintain my composure and not let her see that her words affected me. She then smugly smiled, showcasing her expensive, brand-name bag prominently on the table. I decided to treat myself a bit, she declared, ostentatiously displaying her recently acquired luxurious jewelry and handbag. However, Jonathan and I were privy to the reality behind Samantha's display of opulence. Beneath her confident smile lay a subtle hint of panic. In truth, William had not received the promotion she boasted about. This information had come to me through my closest friend, Tiffany, whose boyfriend Howard worked closely with William and had shared these details about his ongoing struggles. William's performance at the hospital had not seen the anticipated improvement and had unfortunately plateaued. The financial boost that Samantha had eagerly anticipated had failed to materialize, leading to their current predicament where maintaining their lavish lifestyle was putting immense strain on their finances. In response to this, Samantha had begun to behave even more extravagantly than usual in an effort to convince everyone around her of her unbroken string of successes. But such facades are often fragile, and it was only a matter of time before hers would inevitably collapse. Recently, their home had suffered extensive damage due to a severe hurricane that was not anticipated. The storm had shattered windows, ripped off parts of the roof, and uprooted several trees in their garden, leaving their property in a state of ruin. That morning, as they surveyed the extensive damage, they found themselves at a loss for words, overwhelmed by the sudden devastation. Faced with the daunting cost of repairs, Samantha voiced her concern. Hiring professional help will be quite expensive. Unfortunately, we really can't afford that at the moment. But the house is significantly damaged. What are we going to do about it? William asked, his worry evident in his tone. We'll have to figure something out. Samantha replied with a reluctant resolve. Maybe we could ask Jonathan for help. I'd rather not ask him. Samantha answered quickly, albeit with a slight surprise. But he's family, and it might cost us less, right? William continued. Samantha had been adamant about not wanting to rely on Jonathan for assistance. I just don't want to depend on him, she stated firmly, digging in her heels. However, given the exorbitant costs associated with professional repair services, she found herself without many options. After considerable thought and facing the reality of their financial limitations, Samantha reluctantly conceded that she had no alternative but to request Jonathan's help. Jonathan arrived at their residence that same afternoon, donned in his customary work clothes, and immediately began to efficiently set up his assortment of tools. Throughout the repair process, Samantha observed him intently, seemingly searching for any fault in his methods to point out. However, Jonathan addressed every potential issue with a serene demeanor and meticulous attention to detail as he proceeded with the necessary repairs. He replaced the damaged roof tiles and then swiftly installed new windows, achieving an impeccable finish. A few days after Jonathan had completed all the necessary repairs, William could not help but express his astonishment at the high quality of the craftsmanship. The house appeared completely revitalized, almost as if it were brand new. Surprisingly, the dramatic transformation of their home quickly became a popular topic of discussion at the hospital where William worked. His colleagues eagerly commented on the renovations, and soon, the makeover of his house was the predominant subject of conversation in the staff room during their breaks. When he casually mentioned that Jonathan was responsible for the repairs, one of the hospital staff members excitedly shared, "I too had Jonathan work on my house recently, and he did an absolutely fantastic job." Another colleague joined in the conversation, exclaiming, "Really? Jonathan worked on William's house as well? No wonder it's undergone such an incredible transformation. Is Jonathan really that talented? Perhaps I should consider hiring him for some work on my own house too." As these discussions unfolded, questions and praises for Jonathan's skills ricocheted around the room, and before long, his craftsmanship was the highlight of discussions at the hospital. Not only was William's house a talking point, but Jonathan's reliability and skill also became well known among the hospital staff. That following weekend, we all convened at their beautifully restored home. Jonathan's exceptional carpentry skills were evident in every repaired corner of the house, and all the previously compromised areas had been thoroughly restored. Despite the joyful atmosphere, Samantha appeared slightly irritable throughout the gathering. William was noticeably cheerful, openly sharing with everyone how his colleagues at the hospital had lavished praise on the renovations. Everyone was quite envious. They repeatedly inquired about which contractor I had hired. "Jonathan, I can't thank you enough," William expressed his gratitude. Jonathan simply nodded and responded with a smile. "I'm delighted that you are pleased with the work. A home truly forms the foundation of one's life." Then Samantha, unable to hide her surprise at the accolades Jonathan was receiving, interjected with a hint of sarcasm. "Wow, I had no idea he was held in such high regard." Indeed, Jonathan possesses remarkable skills, and I was genuinely pleased to see that his reputation was starting to get the recognition it deserved. I lightly shrugged and casually mentioned, "Jonathan's company is quite well known. They take on significant projects as well." Samantha looked at me, her expression one of surprise. "Jonathan's company?" She looked confused, her gaze shifting back and forth between me and Jonathan. "Yes, Jonathan's company," I affirmed with a reassuring smile. "Wait, Jonathan isn't just a carpenter." "Just a carpenter?" Jonathan chuckled lightly at the question. "Well, yes, I am a carpenter, but that's not all there is to it." Samantha's confusion only seemed to deepen. "What do you mean?" "I always thought you were just covered in sawdust from the job site." "Ah, that's because I'm actively on site. Our company handles everything from residential remodels to major commercial construction projects. I prefer not to be a president who is detached from the actual work, so I still actively participate in the field," Jonathan elaborated. "President? You're the president?" Samantha's voice almost cracked in disbelief. "Yes, I've been running the company for about 10 years now. We've expanded quite a bit, and it keeps me quite busy." Jonathan explained nonchalantly, though his words clearly made Samantha feel even more cornered. I discreetly observed Samantha's reaction. Her eyes widened, seemingly unable to grasp the full extent of the information. "So, you guys are doing quite well financially?" Samantha inquired, attempting to maintain her composure, yet her voice slightly trembled. "Thankfully, yes," Jonathan replied modestly, shrugging. "But why haven't you mentioned this before?" Samantha asked, her brow furrowing in suspicion. "It's not that I was hiding it. I simply never spoke of it because no one had asked." Jonathan responded with a light laugh. But this seemed to irritate Samantha further. She crossed her arms and let out a snort. "If you're a president of a company, you should be more forthcoming and boast about it with confidence." Jonathan simply shrugged again. "I'm not in it for bragging. What truly matters is the trust and the integrity of the work we do." Samantha momentarily lost her words, but then seemed to suddenly remember something and brightened up as if to challenge the conversation. "Well, speaking of which, I'm actually pregnant." The room momentarily descended into silence. "What?" I asked, staring at Samantha in disbelief. "Really?" I continued, my voice filled with surprise. Our parents' eyes widened significantly as they processed the news. Samantha, looking quite pleased with herself, smiled broadly. "Yes, it's still very early, but I suppose it explains why I've been feeling unusually fatigued recently," she explained. Taken aback, I managed to muster a response, "Congratulations." Samantha's face bore a smug expression. "Right? This will surely add even more joy and vibrancy to our family," she remarked confidently. At that moment, the earlier tension seemed to dissipate, replaced by a new subject that brought with it a mix of emotions. Our parents responded with joyous exclamations and beaming smiles. "That's wonderful news." Feeling a surge of pride, Samantha then shared additional news. That's precisely why William and I decided to invest in a vacation home. She elaborated with evident pride. With the arrival of the baby, we'll certainly need a peaceful retreat, don't you think? We've thought about a place that the whole family can enjoy. Our parents initially appeared taken aback by the announcement, but quickly transitioned to expressions of delight. However, William's face showed signs of strain, and Samantha, noticing his troubled look, pressed on with renewed confidence. Jonathan, caught slightly off guard, inquired, "That sounds quite impressive. Where is the property located?" Samantha's sense of pride visibly swelled as she responded, "It's a luxurious villa situated near the lake. It's exceptionally spacious and boasts a very stylish design," Samantha boasted proudly. Upon hearing this, our parents once again collectively voiced their admiration, echoing, "That's incredible." As Jonathan and I made our way home after the dinner, I began to discuss the day's revelations with him. "Do you really believe Samantha's story about the villa? The area she mentioned near the lake is renowned for its luxurious properties. Considering her recent financial difficulties, it seems quite improbable that she could afford such an extravagantly priced property." Jonathan drove quietly for a bit before responding. "Actually, the villa Samantha referred to might be the very one that was recently included on the bank's foreclosure list." His words stunned me into silence, and even Jonathan momentarily averted his gaze, clearly uncomfortable with the implications. "A foreclosure list? Really?" I queried, unable to hide my shock. "Yes, I am quite certain. I've also heard some discussions about that property potentially being auctioned off by the bank." At that instant, I felt certain of my suspicions. Samantha's narrative was nothing more than a facade. Upon arriving home, I wasted no time in calling William. The phone rang briefly before he picked up. "Hello?" "William, I need to clarify something," I began, my voice laden with concern. "The villa Samantha mentioned, I heard it was on a recent foreclosure list. Is it true that you actually purchased it?" A heavy silence fell before William responded. "Yes, it's true. We did attempt to purchase a villa." My heart skipped a beat. I never imagined that Samantha would tell such a big lie. "But why is it facing foreclosure?" William sighed before continuing. "We initially thought everything would proceed smoothly. However, the financial obligations became too challenging over time, and ultimately, we couldn't keep up with the payments. As a result, we failed to secure the villa." Hearing this, I inadvertently gasped, shocked by the revelation. "Does Samantha know about this situation?" "I have informed her, but she has chosen not to accept the reality and instead has misrepresented the truth to maintain appearances." William's tone conveyed deep regret, a sentiment that could no longer be concealed. Despite Samantha's attempts to project an image of affluence, the reality remained starkly different. This news left me with mixed feelings. "Thank you for telling me, William. It's important that you and Samantha discuss this honestly and work through it together." I softly spoke these words before ending the call. William, with a subdued voice, uttered a quiet apology and ended the call. Afterward, I shared the details with Jonathan. I explained to him the villa that Samantha mentioned was actually on the brink of foreclosure. They were unable to manage the financial commitments and ultimately lost the property. Jonathan responded with a soft murmur. I had suspected as much, and his expression turned to one of concern. I wonder how William and Samantha are going to cope with this. If their relationship starts to unravel under these pressures, it might be beyond repair. His words echoed a deep worry for their well-being. Hearing him express such concern also caused a tightness in my chest, reflecting my own apprehensions. Despite my awareness of Samantha's often superficial and pretentious behavior, I held on to a hope that they might still find a path to genuine happiness. "I sincerely wish for Samantha to embrace change," I remarked quietly, reflecting on her situation. She needs to adopt a more truthful approach and gather the courage to face reality. However, any change has to come from her desire to do so, otherwise all our discussions are futile. Jonathan nodded in agreement and added, "Indeed, I hope that one day Samantha will be able to confront her true self." We then sat together in silence, each lost in thoughts about the future, hoping for a day when Samantha might find her way. But the reality of their situation was far from simple. Samantha persisted in her ostentatious lifestyle, continually purchasing luxury goods in an effort to maintain an appearance of wealth far beyond her means. Over time, William became increasingly weary of this unsustainable way of living, and his emotional connection with Samantha began to wane. Engulfed by her own vanity, Samantha remained in denial about their real circumstances, which were continually exacerbated by accumulating debts and lies. The ongoing disputes and persistent dishonesty eventually drove William to make the difficult decision to leave. Shortly after, Samantha experienced a miscarriage, which was undoubtedly precipitated by the immense stress and physical strain she was under. This loss, compounded by William's leaving, plunged her into a deep state of mourning. It was at this point that Samantha truly comprehended the heavy cost of her previous lifestyle choices. The once glamorous life she had curated for herself disintegrated, leaving her burdened with significant debt and no sustainable means of support. As someone who had primarily been a housewife, Samantha found herself lacking the necessary skills and experience to secure stable employment. She made several attempts to find work, but her efforts were short-lived, and she quickly resigned from several positions. The facade that had once served to protect her now became a heavy chain that restricted her, leaving her unable to rely on her parents and feeling increasingly isolated and anxious. A neighbor once remarked to me, "In the end, everything built on lies is destined to collapse." I pondered this statement with a calm demeanor. Jonathan and I often discussed how the foundations of genuine relationships and earnest effort, rather than wealth or possessions, are the true measures of value. These principles, although they may require more time and may not always be glamorous, are what ultimately lead to meaningful success. One should focus on being true to oneself, rather than how others might perceive us. Jonathan shared with me one evening a sentiment that continues to resonate deeply with me. He has always remained grounded, never allowing superficial matters to sway him, and has consistently approached his work with utmost sincerity. This genuine approach not only endeared him to those around us, but also built a level of trust that has propelled him to considerable achievements within the construction industry. He has undertaken numerous projects, each underpinned by his technical prowess and efficiency, garnering several industry accolades. Particularly noteworthy was his role in a major urban redevelopment project, which not only received extensive media coverage, but also solidified his reputation in the construction sector. He has always placed high value on the trust he has developed with his clients, which has ultimately positioned him at the pinnacle of his profession. Parallel to his success, I have pursued my passion for painting, gradually establishing myself in the art world after years of dedication. My artwork, recognized for its unique use of abstract color and emotional expression, has resonated with many and attracted attention from art fairs and collectors globally, leading to several opportunities to exhibit internationally. This journey of artistic expression has been immensely fulfilling, allowing me to share my worldview through my paintings. Together, we have celebrated our individual successes, supporting each other's growth and achievements. The trust and effort we have incrementally built over the years have undoubtedly culminated in the success we enjoy today, a testament to our shared belief in the importance of perseverance and building lasting relationships. Our achievements are not the result of sudden fortune, but are the fruits of long-term dedication. We remain committed to supporting each other and are confident in our ability to build an even greater future together.